or voltage supply system. It's usually added as a resistor in series, and so you measure its drop by I times R. This is the exact same case in our system. Now there is... Hello! Oh, my camera's a bit weird. Yes. Hello! Hi, Harry. How are you keeping? Welcome in, welcome in. Happy Saturday! It's Saturday, Saturday, getting down on Saturday. Today we're going to play some games. Hello, Belbadin. How are you keeping today? Welcome in. Greetings, JF. Welcome in, welcome in. I hope you guys are having a wonderful Saturday. Do you know how good it is today? It is so good that this fan on the most minimum setting is actually kind of cold. I'm gonna have it on, but in a few minutes I'm gonna actually turn off the fan. It's getting a bit chilly with the fan on now these days. Howdy, Rogue Jelly. Hello, Conrad. Hello, hello, folks. You changed your name to Conrad the Arisen. Is there lore behind the change in username? Oh, the Canadian wildfire. There was a good bit of... We even had wildfire in Ireland. Yeah. In County Kerry, it happened a few days ago. So yeah, we're getting troublesome wildfires here as well. Wall text message incoming. Hi, Jayfer. Welcome in, welcome in. I'm glad. Yes, thank you. I saw your comment and I responded to it. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. If you guys don't know, we uploaded the coolest YouTube video with MedJ just now. If you guys could interact with that new YouTube video I just uploaded, it would be amazing. Yeah. Your stream was recommended by YouTube. What do you do? So, I teach physics. I build electronics. You can see I have 3D printers and CNCs in the background and stuff. Sometimes I invent things. But usually, right before stream, I have a lesson plan. That might be a bit, you know, too polite of a term. But yeah, I have a lesson plan or an idea of what I'm going to be doing. And today what we're doing is I'm actually going to do something I haven't done in a while, which is very, very basic introduction to electricity. I'm going to cover Ohm's law. And we're just going to sit all day today solving a bunch of fun resistor networks. So if anyone's interested in learning from the beginning, then welcome here. Hi, Masha. Hi, Moonshine. Hope you're keeping well. Welcome in, welcome in. Afterwards, then, I stop my YouTube stream because I only do science on this stream. And then I play some video games. And we're playing through Mass Effect 2. What I want to get, by the way, one moisturizer for my hand. And this. It is what it is. Trying to repair laptops. Oof. That sounds tough. Hi, Everyday Steminist. Welcome in, welcome in. Good afternoon. I hope you're keeping well. Put some lip balm at least. Hi, Cobra. Whoa, stop. Yeah, maybe I need to grab some hand moisturizer later. Then many years ago, someone in Hollow Knight stream called me Sir Conrad the Hollow, so I started a year-long journey. The Redeemed and now the Arisen. Only one chapter missing. Ah, that's nice. I didn't realize just how often you could change your username on Twitch. That's nice. Do you have any tour of your electronics bench? No, it is a video I've been planning on recording. I have so many YouTube videos I want to record over the summer. And I've been off for 1 month. But because we've had 3 weeks of heat waves, I have been the most unproductive human being on this planet. And yeah, that's one of the videos I want to record before the end of summer. I need to also clean up because it's such a mess. My lab is such a, I know, so messy. But yeah, I want to do a full... Oh, sorry. When did I kill the mic? Thanks for telling me, Taffy. Hi, Father Dougal. Sorry. I apologize. Joshua Clan, welcome in, everyone. When you touched it, fair enough. I don't remember where I even touched it. But yeah, a lot of people say that the lab looks really, really cool. I think my lab room doesn't look that cool. It's really messy, unorganized, chaotic. But you know what? Some people, that's really, really cool.
No,
so
thank you. We don't want any more visitors, well-wishers, or distant relations.
And what about very old friends? Otto with the freaking 35 months. Let's go. Praise the sun. Also, hi, Best Tofu friends. We're doing very well. Thank you for asking, Otto. Welcome in. Welcome in. Thank you so much for 35 months. Let's go. No real lab is tidy and clean. That is true. That is true. I agree. Any proper lab would be a chaotic mess. Hi, Medjay, the artist, the creator of our newest YouTube video. Welcome in, welcome in. If you guys could, I've pinned it in the comment on Twitch, on top in the chat. Medjay did such a fantastic job of Gimli. So if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, a very short little video on terminal velocity. I think Medjay just outdid himself. Thanks for the follows. Appreciate it. Good art on the video. Oh, it's so good. It is so good. I think Medjay's pretty incredible, but I have a biased opinion, so, you know. Can't say too much about that. It's an interesting video. Thank you. We were kind of exploring, because we do need like short videos with me and Medjay to collab on these kind of things, but it's hard to, you know, come up with ideas for these kind of, because it has to be short, it has to be informative, it has to be catchy. Kind of hard to think about these kind of things. But you know what? That's, you know, about the creative world. You want to be creative. This is what you gotta do. That still only counts as one. Thanks, Minnie, for the follows. Hi, Cal. Welcome in. Have a big cup of coffee. I need some caffeine. And we'll get some water afterwards. And yeah, we'll kick off our lesson on electricity. We'll do couple of hours on electricity today. And today. And then Mass Effect 2. I think we're going to go for Morden now. So who did I recruit the other day? I got the South African military guy. I forget his name. The mercenary. And I got, what's his name? Archangel. We know. Got Archangel to join me. And so the third one, I think, is Morden. Zahid, that's the one. Good on you, Matt Cable. Hello, Google, welcome in. I hope to have YouTube chat at some point as well here. I apologize. It'd be nice to have it in one embedded thing. It's not as easy as I thought. There isn't a whole bunch of stuff. You watch football? I've been keeping an eye on the World Cup, but I don't watch it much, no. I lost interest once I started getting really into rugby. Now that I'm a rugby fan, I can't go back to football. It's way too boring. It's way too boring in comparison to me. You think so, Otto? Hey, Brave. Hello, Sonic. I was going to say good morning, but it's not morning anymore. Cricket? No, nothing. So rugby is the only sport I watch. I used to play a lot. To play hurling, soccer, competitive show jumping, Irish dancing. There's a lot of stuff I used to do when I was younger, but as soon as I turned 18, I pretty much stopped all sports. No, Jimmy, but you know what I did? I recorded it on OBS so that Nathan can watch it later today. So I've been purposely not watching the game or knowing the score so that I don't mention it on stream and so Nate can't hear. He's going to watch it now with no spoilers. So I recorded the game for him. Because, like, you know, it's really weird, but because of the rugby games being so early, like, the way we like to watch rugby is, like, we want to have takeout, we want to drink beer, we want, you know, that kind of thing. And you can't be doing that at 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, look, I'm not going to judge. If you guys do that at 8 o'clock in the morning, you guys do you. But it's a little bit socially inappropriate in most places to be drinking and having takeout at 8 o'clock in the morning. I shan't talk about the game. Yeah, I'll find out this evening, Jimmy. Although, I have a feeling I know. Yeah, rugby is really exciting to watch. I feel like there's amazing strats and amazing, yeah, stuff going on. And I know there's, like, dirty play involved. You know, like, players will do sneaky things. But I feel like it's a lot of really crafty, sneaky things. Like, they technically are obeying the laws, and the laws have to be updated because players are being little shits, which I kind of like. Well, I don't like it myself personally, but because I'm watching, it's great. But what I don't like, football. I've been watching a lot of the football games. It's a no contact sport. It's kind of like black and white. It's no contact, right? And I keep seeing all these videos of literally players jumping up on people's backs and, like, dragging and pulling their hairs and all of this, and I'm kind of like, how is that okay? Even in rugby, if someone did that, that would have been, and rugby is a full contact sport, like, that would not have been okay. Having big respect for the... Yeah, I love the relationship between rugby players and the ref. The football and ref situation. So in rugby, I don't know if you guys know, you can actually hear the mic of the ref. The ref's mic is on most of the game. So you can hear all the calls, explanations as to why something's a red or a foul or, you know, anything like that. So the ref is always heard. And you can always hear the other players coming up and arguing stuff. They're so polite. In fact, you can get carded for bad behavior towards the ref. I know why in football you cannot have the ref mic'd up. You just know it's going to be so inappropriate to air that language on TV. Yeah, Taffy, we always say that here. I do feel like it's kind of true. Football is a gentleman's game played by thugs. Rugby is a thug's game played by gentlemen. I suppose, like, it's even just historic development. Rugby, I don't know what it's like in England and other nations, but in Ireland, rugby is considered quite a posh sport. Like, the best players are in Blackrock and these regions in Dublin where all the rich people live. So it's considered a very posh sport. Now, it is more open. We do have, like, clubs and society. You don't have to be crazy wealthy to be able to join them, but it's considered a posh sport here. Call it a mine. Otto, thank you so much for giving Jelly a gift sub. You're very, very kind. Yeah, it's also considered a posh sport. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, no, there's some clubs here for kids these days, which is amazing. Like, when I was growing up as a kid, there was no rugby. Well, there was rugby, but, you know, we never had rugby that big around with kids. But it's a lot more popular nowadays. To the point that when I was already 17, I already got asked to join some tag rugby teams. So tag rugby is, yeah, is one of the sports that's quite popular and, well, safer. Ah, rugby is in your blood. Nice. I showered this morning. Oh, I didn't shower this morning. I did not shower today. You can tell if I showered or not. This sounds a bit TMI, but if I have my hair in a ponytail or my hair is tied up, means I did not shower. There we go. There's my secret chat. Now you know. I assumed that was herder at first. Thank you so much, Otto. You're very, very kind for gifting a gift sub. Hi, Kazanix. Welcome in. To the headphone users, do you guys hear some like a very subtle bit of music in the background? The ones on speakers, you probably don't hear it, and that's okay. Hi, Dan. Yes, you can. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Refresh the page. Like some Witcher music in the background usually. Hey, Fifik, welcome in. How are you keeping? Are we all excited and ready for a wonderful weekend? This is... No, this is not my last weekend before I go away for a week and a half. I'm gonna be gone so long, Chair. I'm gonna be gone so long. So I'll be gone again, but it's for not my wedding, but I'm a maid of honor at another wedding, but it's all the way in Riga, Latvia. So I'm flying to Latvia. I'm just making a little bit of a holiday out of it. Not even much, actually. I thought I was going to get 1 day in Riga before, but I'm not even really. Then the wedding, then the day after. Yeah, but, then we're going out. Okay, somehow, I'm in Riga for 6 days. And only 1 day I actually get to do some touristy stuff. I don't know how that happened. I need to look at my calendar. That's weird. But it did happen. It's an EP Saturday for me and my fiance. Definitely one for watching streams. That's nice. Sometimes it's really nice to be able to do that. For me, I treat like Saturdays, Sundays as my chores day. It's like my productive days. I'm not sure why. I guess... I have a feeling this stems from me being a student. So when I used to be a student and I used to work full time, like going to college was 9 to 6, and then I have my job from 10 to 4 a.m. and I'd have naps in between. So weekends were all about, because I didn't have college, were all about getting assignments done, getting study done, getting shit done before work again. So I feel like the weekends I always treated as productive days. How did you survive that? I actually don't think I did, Conrad. I think I got mentally damaged a little bit during that time. I think the prolonged sleep deprivation was a huge concern for me for a little while. I did things and my behavior was really bad during that time. Nothing crazy illegal or anything, but just on reflection, like, what was I thinking? Although, you know, you're in your 20s, might be a bit stupid, generally speaking. But yeah, after I quit that job, it took me a few years to fix my insomnia. Once that was fixed, basically my life started getting back on track around 26. 26 years old, I slowly started to begin to fix myself. And at about 28, 29, when, my brain is functioning again. No, it's not a sustainable schedule. Absolutely not. I did it for 5 years. It was not okay. About 350 of them are rocks in various forms. Jesus, 679. That is a lot of photos. You're mugging Granny's face. Yes. That the usual mugging phases that we go through, Vizier. Hi, Philippe. Welcome in. 15 stream streak. Let's go, Dan. Incroyable. Wanted to make sure I have my sound alerts up and running. Maybe we should change some of our sound alerts. I feel like I have soundboards in Discord. We should definitely look into making more custom sound alerts. Because Nas and Bog added some crazy sounds in our soundboard. I'll give you an example of some of the soundboards. Actually, I don't know. There might be TOS. They're just screams mostly, actually, now that I think about it. Oh, I can't open the soundboard unless I'm in a chat. Okay, that's fine. Never mind. But yeah, I think they're mostly screams, out of context screams and swearing, so maybe we'll be careful. But yeah, I do think I need to revamp Twitch. Just my About Me page needs to be updated. Well, when I was a full-time streamer, I would update like at least once a week everything. I was really on top of shit, but once I became part-time, just everything just deteriorated. I think I just need to log 1 hour a week in my schedule of like Twitch updating things. So it'll be like adding YouTube chat on this monitor because I have YouTube and Twitch here, but you guys don't see that. Updating my schedule and you know, all these little things that I just need to kind of put aside. The lab rat passes, which I will start doing next week. Hey, which is really good. But Chloe, if you think about other games, there are some like, yeah, really, really awesome games that you could stream on Twitch and teach physics using them. We could give you some physics recommendations of games. If you want to teach physics while playing games. Wait, how do you do today to keep learning while working? Sorry, Philippe, could you rephrase that question? How do I keep streaming while also having a job? Is that what you're asking? Yeah, pictures of rocks are really, really cool. Oh, Dragon Age Origins. I actually quit Dragon Age Origins. I was like 40 hours into the game and I quit it. Couldn't get back into it. I don't know why. I think I was very tired. It was in my early days of trying full-time lecturing while streaming. It was a lot of work. Yeah. Yeah. Was it the one yes, we did. Fallout 3. Sorry, Fallout New Vegas and Dragon Age Origins crashed a lot for us. BioShock was another one that crashed a lot for me. That was quite frustrating as well at times. I played Cyberpunk twice on Twitch, Mata. I think I might have a whole... Maybe not a whole video playthrough. But yeah, I definitely have some stuff on Cyberpunk. I don't know about it teaching physics though. Like, it has a lot of cool sci-fi aspects, but I don't know about teaching physics. Yeah. I heard about that, Kazir. They've given Obsidian the next Fallout project. That's right. My fear is I won't be able to keep learning when there's a job using time of day. I think I wouldn't sleep. I won't comment on that, Philippe, because your life is very different to mine. And your job could be very draining. And you genuinely might not have the motivation or the ability to teach, to learn. I do try to encourage every one of you, every single one of you in YouTube and Twitch, in my chat. If there's any advice I could give anyone and everyone is to keep your brain active. It is the best thing to stop mental deterioration from occurring in your elderly age. It is an important aspect of being a functional member of society by always learning, keeping your mental performance high, being a good member of society by, first of all, being informed about everything around you and you know, living life accordingly to updated information and so on and so forth. If there is any advice I could give anyone, it's to never stop learning. Make sure your brain is doing something. Learning comes in different shapes. I hate to promote this, but like, let's say you love League of Legends. Instead of, you know, queuing up 4 hours every evening after work, brainlessly playing the game and raging and stuff, maybe like set aside something like half an hour, 40 minutes each day to studying YouTube tutorials or practicing certain combos on certain champs or something like that. I know it sounds a bit... I'm trying to come up with ways, but basically, whatever amount you could, try and learn, if you can. But it's still a very bold assumption for me to say that everyone has the ability to do that. Some of us have full-time jobs on top of part-time jobs, and we just don't have the time, and I completely understand that. Hi, Lizard Soul. Welcome in, welcome in. Hello, I'm Brackus. Doing math every day is very, very good. Hi, Foomtish even. Morning, lead. Now, is that lead professor? Because I do like lead. I'm a big fan of lead. I know it's all poison and stuff like that, but lead acid batteries are POG, really reliable, great recyclability, fantastic lifetime. We're really well informed about their functionality. And lead solder is amazing for soldering. Just don't breathe them. Fine. PB Professor. There we go, Otto. Yes, always keep the small head monkeys occupied so I can't think about the bad stuff. I used to be like that, Conrad. Yeah, but today and a few times I've actively decided I watch loads of YouTube. I listen to a lot of podcasts and I read a lot. And it keeps my brain active when I'm doing chores and I'm petting Bambi and I'm doing mundane tasks. But today I actively turned it off and I thought, you know what? I'm going to be alone with my thoughts today while I do some work. And it was actually quite interesting. I'm glad that I'm kind of relaxing with my brain. I realize now in reflection a lot more that I'm just an anxious person. I've always been quite anxious. But it's nice to see my evolution with age and maturity, that I'm becoming less and less anxious. And I don't need stuff running in my brain all the time. I can just, you know, be in the moment. Scary idea. Hi, Cliff. Why are all the cool stuff poisonous? Yeah, mercury is so cool. The coolest thing that you can do to mercury, don't quote me on this. I am not giving you advice on what to do. But the coolest thing you can do with mercury is drop it. Like, spill it. Try and fucking clean up mercury after that. It's so much fun. Okay, I shouldn't say. But, yeah. Yeah, falling out with each other. I feel like it gets better with age. It does get better. The anxiety does get better with age. I've never seen proper asbestos, Otto. I've never seen it, so it would be cool to see it. Although we had an asbestos fire here a couple of months ago. We had to close our windows and stuff. Yes. Cool, would not recommend. Once in high school, I did reduce my mercury a bit too much and ended up with a metallic one. Gallium and cesium can melt with normal body temp. They are... Gallium is okay. Isn't cesium bad though? It's super reactive, isn't it, dear? That's the one. It is. So, sorry, I think asbestos is an insulator that easily burns. Maybe it doesn't burn that easily, but if it burns, it releases very toxic fumes. Is that what it is about asbestos? I do know that when there's an asbestos fire, it's a huge issue. We can Google this. Why did we not allowed? I suppose, yeah, you're right. It is inflammable, but if you do breathe it in, it is extremely dangerous. So in a fire, you increase the amount of probability of it being in fumes. The toxic fibers are the problem, yes. I would rather cobalt, Mythic Frost. Absolutely. If I could get my hands on cobalt in a morally positive way, that'd be great. Hi, Lynn. Hello, Tigger. Welcome in, Front Dragon. Maybe not that isotope, though. Fair enough. I actually don't know what Cobalt 60 does. But yeah, I would love to be able to get my hands on more cobalt. There's some really cool semiconductor technology advancements in cobalt, and there have been. But it's really hard to do academic research on them without industry backup because most universities do not like cobalt ethically. It's obtained capitalizing on child labor in African nations, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it's mined using children. And I know we joke about children yearn for the mines, alas. No worries, Otto, absolutely. Tell Cora I said hi. Actually, I might open her stream and just get my stream streak for her. She's still playing Expedition 33. That girl, she plays games so thoroughly. I cannot. Let's see if I can catch her stream streak. No worries. Oh, you don't have to apologize to her. Welcome in. Hi, Rebel. Because I know that asbestos isn't allowed anymore in buildings. And when there's an asbestos fire, like I said, we had a warning all over here, and we had to close our windows and doors, and we weren't allowed outside. I was so nervous for Bambi because, like, she has tiny lungs. So we hid her away for a little while. Hey, Zilber. 14 months, let's go! Go for the 4 physics. Is there a way we could construct a slightly better sentence there, I wonder? Zilber, thank you so much for the 14-month support. You're very, very kind. Yeah, probably Conrad, yeah. Isn't that usually the problem, though? There's a lot of amazing metals, elements, and so on and so forth that are used in so many things. And then we would discover over time that, oh, did you know that this thing is carcinogenic? Did you know that this thing causes heart failure? Did you know that this thing... Oh, fuck's sakes, like, we have microplastics everywhere now. I don't think there's anything healthy in this world. Before the advancement of science, we were just living in a world of... And honestly, there might be a grain of truth and comfort in that. Hi, Star. Welcome in. Or how about iridium, just because it's rare? Is iridium rare? I mine a lot of iridium in Mass Effect, actually, if I'm not mistaken. It makes up asbestos is when it gets distributed. They get into your lungs and your body is unable to remove them, so they constantly attack them and causes problems that way. It's not actually the asbestos, it's the body's inability to deal with it. Okay. I suppose it's kind of like a cancer almost. Not in the exact same way as in like a cancer is a good bit different, that it doesn't detect it and attack it and lets it grow. But I suppose it's in a similar way that our body just doesn't know how to work with it. Plastiglomerate. Is that the little cool rocks that you can see on the beaches sometimes, Otto? Is that the same one? Good morning, NDSR. We are just finishing our coffee now too. We're going to get water in a little bit and we're going to kick off our lesson.
That still only counts as one.
Thanks so much for the follows, by the way. I really, really appreciate it. You guys are coming in a perfect moment. We will be starting our lesson soon. We're just going to cover a quick crash course on Ohm's law and what resistors are. And we're going to do not a real experiment today, because sometimes I like to do practical and theoretical stuff. Mostly I like to do practical. But today we're just going to do pure theory. We're going to just have a bit of fun solving some resistor networks. I have a textbook for some reference, but if you guys later on want to send me some bullshit kind of constructions of resistor networks, feel free. You can find them on beaches. They are a mix of molten plastic and natural debris. Okay. Oh, I just burped. And it tastes like vegetable soup. I had some vegetable soup earlier. Hello, long-time viewer of the content here. Would you mind repeating the burp for I did not hear it? Oh, I'm very polite. I don't tend to burp really out loud. There are some burps that are like yummy on the way back up. Yeah, I can't think of one now. Maybe hot chocolate? Hi, Bog. Did you see the most amazing work by Medjay today? So if anyone doesn't know, I'll show it now, actually. I think it's super terrific too. I'm very biased, of course, but I think this is the greatest work of art ever seen by man. And I'm going to get you guys to be a witness to this. The Rings. So I hope you're all a fan of Lord of the Rings, because I'm going to force you into watching this right now. Are we ready? I'm going to put myself over here, I think. There we go. Are we ready? We all cozy? We're having an inception. Today I'm going to be teaching about terminal velocity using Gimli from Lord of the Rings. We're going to talk about the concept and the equation. In this explanation, Gimli jumps off one of the great eagles and begins to accelerate due to the force of gravity exerted by Arda. Gimli is going to continue speeding up. His velocity, i.e. speed, is going to be continuously increasing until it caps. This is terminal velocity, when the force of gravity is completely cancelled out by the buoyancy and the drag. In this case, we're going to ignore buoyancy. So what kind of things actually affect the number, the velocity? Vt is equal to the square root 2mg all over rho a cd, where m is the mass, in this case, Gimli's mass, about 75 kilograms. Rho is the density of the
I did
fluid
forget his
that
armor,
Gimli's falling
actually.
through. So air. And of course, the air is less dense on top than it is at the bottom, but generally speaking, depending on how high the eagles are, we're going to consider the density quite
He was
constant.
tossed.
A is the projected area of our Gimli, meaning if Gimli was hovering on top of you and the sun was right above him and you could draw exactly his shadow out, that would be the surface area of Gimli exposed through the air that he is falling. He can change this depending if he wants to fall helmet or head first versus flat. Finally, the drag coefficient is a unique value of the resistance the object experiences as it goes through the fluid. So looking at this equation, this means that Gimli can speed up or slow down doing a couple of things. First of all, he could reduce his mass by throwing away his axe, or he can change his surface area by going headfirst or flattening himself out. Let's finish this video with a fun calculation. Assuming that Arda has the same acceleration due to gravity as Earth, and the drag coefficient is 0.85, Gimli weighs about 75 kilograms, make an estimation for Gimli's surface area. Could you calculate Gimli's terminal velocity as he is crashing into the Earth? We should do that calculation on stream. I think that would be fun. But yeah, if you guys, I know that we just watched it live on stream, but the link is pinned in the Twitch chat and I'll post it in YouTube as well. If you could guys give it a view and interact with it, whether it be a like or a comment, it would really help out. Those kind of algorithms really depend on early interaction. So I'd really, really appreciate it if you could. It'll be a great way to support me, obviously, but even more so Medjay. That was on a website. It's called Geek's Outfit Store, I think it's called. Hi, Mord. Welcome in. Thank you, Chloe. I hope it, yeah. Is this linked to learning about electricity? Hi, Alex. Welcome in. We will be doing electricity, yes. I'm thinking about doing the calculation on Gimli's terminal velocity really, really quickly. Just to do a crude calculation, just for funs and shits and giggles. It would be a cool thing, and then we can kick off on electricity. I think that would be fun. I know everyone's definition of fun is different, but... Oh,
Thank you. We don't want any more visitors.
your poor back,
well-wishers, or
Mort.
distant relations.
And what about very old friends? 47 goddamn months. That's a lot of months. Welcome in, Warden. Thank you so much for the resub on this channel. You're very, very kind. Really appreciate all the support on this channel, lab rats. Is it better to watch on YouTube or Twitch? It doesn't matter. I'm monetizing on both, so no matter what, I get support either way. It's whatever you prefer. Twitch is way more active, and my usually primary focus, in the sense that I only stream small segments on YouTube. Okay. Oh, I heard about the hype feature. If my video was being hyped, would I get a notification? Because I don't get notification. I've never been hyped, I think. I don't even know what that means. Is that like you pay money to get my video bumped up? Because that sounds... Pay to win? A little bit. I think it's free to do. Oh, is it? Oh, okay. I don't know how that works then.
Call it a mine. A mine!
Okay. Hey, Kami, thank you so much for the 2 months. Let's go. You're very, very kind. So much for all the subs, lab rats. Appreciate it. Just because you gift subs and subscribe to this channel does not mean the rations are going to increase. Do what you will. They're still not going to increase.
That still only counts as one!
It still only counts as 1. Suppose we'll write out that equation again. I might the camera angle slightly here so we can see more of the board. Give it a second to dry. Be a bit wet from the spray bottle. You mean bringing the teacher coffee and donuts doesn't improve my grade? Well, it does improve your teacher's mood, so maybe you have a higher chance of them correcting. I actually tell that to my students biasly. I know that in many, you know, thought processes, people would have, oh, like the teacher's objectively is going to be objective of my exam. But here's the thing, if it's going to be something descriptive, like a lab report, and you open a lab report, you're going to sit down to correct it, and the discussion is 6 pages long, and it's all waffle. You're just going to put your lecturer who's correcting it in a bad mood as they're correcting it. And passively, not necessarily on purpose, they're going to give you a lower grade. However, I always try to advertise, if you stick to the point, if it's nice, short and sweet, dense with information, no waffle, I think that's the best way to write a lab report. Not the word count that matters, it's what you say. I'm a big advocate of that. Puts your lecturer in a better mood. Speaking about controversies with teaching though, have you guys heard about the huge issue in the Indian exam, the medicine exam? Tibby's actually has a really good YouTube video if you like coverage incident. It's so heartbreaking. What happened? So many hunger strikes and young kids ending their lives, basically sheer workload. Yeah, the two. Thank you, Flaming Hot Potato Peeler. Exactly. NEET. Yeah, it sounds very horrific. It was very, very sad. Yeah. Bribe your teachers with chicken and waffles. Is that an American thing, by the way? I feel like I've heard chicken and waffles before. Even like the thing. I don't know what it's like in other nations, but in Eastern Europe and even in Ireland, pancakes are usually a sweet thing. You have crepes, and it'll be like with syrups and strawberries and stuff. But in America, they often have it like pancakes with bacon and maple syrup. Maybe that's Canadian as well. It's quite interesting. We do have savory pancakes though, but when I say savory pancakes, what we do is we make a pancake, no sugar, and then we have minced meat, and we close it up, we wrap it up, and we fry it. Oh. But that's like a separate thing. Like, that's not like you know. We've got them savory as well in Germany. It's great at EE. I'm not sure what you're on about, Salem, actually. Sorry. Chicken and waffles is a yummy breakfast. Oh, I think we did have it once. I think Nate had it when we were in Georgia, Atlanta. There was one. Teach you a lesson? Oh, I saw it, Zier. It's on Netflix. It's on my list to watch. Is it good? Teach you a lesson. I wanted to watch it. It provoked a national debate in South Korea. Yeah, the South Korean education system has been quite tough and difficult for a very long time. And I mean, most of the K-dramas that are set in high school level and college level are quite... There is a theme of academia and studying hard and getting out of the line of poverty that kids are usually in. I mean, I'm sure you also know of Parasite. It was a K-movie that did extremely well. Won an Oscar and everything. And kind of feeds into that as well, about the poverty cycle. Yes, it is. Most of the stories are based on real-life incidents. Oh, I'm going to watch it. Thanks, Zier, for kind of enforcing it. I do want to watch that show. A restaurant in Dundrum does the chicken and sweet waffles. It might be an American import, but it is good. Okay, fair enough. Good morning. Morning, Arlie. Welcome in. Okay, we're going to do the calculation real quick. Let's do terminal velocity. Oh, you have a terminal velocity. Let's go. So let's check the equation. Vt is equal to root 2m. Oh, I don't remember the equation. Do we, does anyone have the equation there? Let me open my YouTube video. No, Meji sent me a picture of it, actually. Good old Meji. Mg rho A CD. Okay, so let's see how we get on calculating it. 2 times 75. Now the problem is I didn't actually include Gimli's armor. The problem is I assumed Gimli was 75 kilograms butt naked. That was a small mistake we made. I think it's rude to grab Gimli like that and have him butt naked. 3 kilograms of armor? I would say 30 kilograms of armor? No? Do you have a PhD in science, computing, or software? No, I have a PhD in applied physics. Rho is the density of air. 30 sounds more reasonable. So we'll do 25. I'm just going to slightly adjust now. 100 times 9.81. We assume that Ard has roughly the same acceleration due to gravity as Earth does. Rho's the density of air. That's a lot of ampermeter. No, this is terminal velocity. Area. Gimli's quite voluptuous. Would half a meter squared be reasonable? Hi Grim, hi Lizeth, welcome in Sam. Average height of a dwarf. That's too massive, I feel like, Jimmy, because Gimli is not gonna, he's not a square, he's not gonna be 1 meter. Although, do you know what? I feel like 1 meter squared might be okay. We'll do 1 meter squared. It'll be nice calculation wise. And CD, I said, is 0.85? Alright. Have all the parameters. We can actually calculate Gimli's terminal velocity. Where's my calculator? Fuck. I got it. It's in my work pencil case. Okay, here we go. 200 times 9.81, close brackets, 1.255 multiplied by 0.85, close brackets. No way! What? I think I made Gimli way too resistive. I think this 0.85 was a bit much. But Gimli's terminal velocity is 42 meters. 42! That's not bad. So, to put it in kilometers per hour, that is... What is that? That is... divided by 1,000. Multiplied by 3,600, right? Oh, that's pretty fast still. $154. Oh. Kilometers per hour. So, he would be like one of those BMWs on the Autobahn. That's the terminal velocity of Gimli. I feel like his survival rate is also zilch in this case, but that's I'm no physicist. That might be just, you know. He's falling belly down, Grim. That's why I estimated his surface area to be exactly 1 meter squared. That's still only counts as 1. Maybe dwarfs are immune to fall damage. I mean, we'd have to roll. Maybe a nat to get lucky, right? We can roll anything. Or isn't that the beauty of these games? That you can roll anything and hope for the best. to compare, and like I clearly probably made a mistake with the coefficient. Average terminal velocity of human. We weren't miles off. 193 kilometers per hour for a human being. That's not bad. We got pretty damn good. That's not bad at all. So about 30 or 40 more kilometers per hour faster for a human. Not too scary. Roll D20, exactly. He would have less surface area than a human, that is true. But he would have more mass. Mass per surface area. Gimli is quite voluptuous. And his armor is quite dense. Yes. Although, does that make him more like a bumblebee? Is that what the concern is? He's more of a bumblebee then in that case. Hi Daniel, welcome in, welcome in. Hi Silver, hello Cosmic. Voluptuous.
Final count, 42.
42? Oh, that's
not
not
bad.
bad for a pointy-eared elvish princeling.
Hi Nada, welcome in. Thank you Grim for the biddies. So there you have it, chat. We actually did some really cool science. We calculated the terminal velocity, roughly. Not a bad estimation if I do say so myself. My mistake in my YouTube video, and I feel so bad about that, so sorry Medjay for letting you down, is I took Gimli's mass butt naked. The mistake I made, I shall be ashamed forever and ever. Go for a quick break, we'll grab some water, and when we come back, I think we'll kick off our lesson on an introduction to electricity. We'll do some resistor problems, maybe some Wheatstone Bridge problems. Survived a fall from her aircraft. It helped she fell into snow-capped mountains. There was a retired German army medic nearby who provided immediate. It was 10 kilometers. There's a few incidences of people surviving parachute.
Pull the lever, Kronk.
And the idea behind it to make it possible is possibility of breaking the fall slowly. So I think there's a few survivals that happened due to crashing into the trees. Pull the lever, Kronk. Why are we pulling the lever, Kronk? Or in this case, John. Now, I'm no expert at parachuting, but that is my knowledge of that at the moment. All right, perfect timing. We finished the coffee. I'll be right back. We're just going to run some ads, and when we come back, we'll do some more electricity. And if you guys could, in your spare moments, to watch and like that video, it would mean a lot. The algorithm really depends on early clicks and early views and early likes and early buttons and early shares and all that. Yeah, all those little bits and pieces. Yeah, absolutely. Call me. I can. The YouTube video can tell you if you want, but M is mass, G is the acceleration due to gravity. Rho is the density of the air, and technically it's less dense the higher it is, but you could take an average. A is the projected surface area. So basically, are you falling flat or head down? There's a proper diagram Medjay drew in the YouTube video. And CD is the drag coefficient. It's a unique value for each material. of its resistance as it goes through air. It's just a ratio value. In this case, I assumed 0.85 in that case. So it's not 255, it's 1.255. That's the density of air. 1.255 kilograms per meter cube. That's the density of air. 1 is 1 meter squared. That's the projected area. 0.85 is the drag coefficient. All right, I'll see you guys in a little bit. Consideration. But sometimes it is important to take winding resistance and winding capacitance into consideration in your system. Again, especially if you're doing very, very careful measurements. Again, inductors are the opposite of capacitance in the sense that when they are inductors in series, we add them up, kind of like resistors. And when we have inductors in parallel, we add the inverse of them. Again, very similar to how we treat resistors in parallel. I mentioned earlier that inductors are very important in AC circuits. Let me show you a really interesting thing that happens between voltage and current. So remember, in a DC circuit, we turn on the voltage source and the inductor panics. It's got all these different coils and it needs to sort out the current that is going through the coil, so it stops current initially. Then over time, it lets more and more through. We say that the current lags the inductor voltage. So if you look at the plot here of current versus voltage, they're constantly 90 degrees out of phase, as demonstrated with the phasor diagram. This is the important manipulation source of inductors in AC circuits. Again, very similar to capacitors, there is a reactance associated with inductors. The reactance is basically the resistance of the inductor in an AC circuit, and we have to use AC circuits because there's a frequency associated with this. The equation for reactance is equal to 2 pi f times L. It's dependent on two things, the value of the inductor and the frequency that the AC circuit is operating on. Let's go back to our very first definition of inductance. V induced is equal to L times di dt, the rate of change of current. Here in this diagram, I'm trying to explain the rate of change of current and frequency. If the frequency of your current is changing more rapidly, the rate of change of current, the steepness of the slope, increases. So as you increase the frequency of your wave, you're increasing the rate of change of current. And the opposite is true. If your slope is less steep, i.e. you're decreasing the frequency, you're also decreasing the rate of change of current. So when we look at the equation V induced is directly proportional to the rate of change of current, if we're increasing the frequency, it means that we're increasing the rate of change of current, and we're also then increasing the voltage that is induced. If we keep the rate of change of current, i.e. frequency, constant, it means that if we increase the inductance, we also increase the induced voltage, or the opposite is true. If we decrease the inductance, we decrease the voltage induced. So remember, if there is more current flowing through, that means you have less resistance. If you have less current flowing through, it must mean that you have higher resistance. This is why the reactance is directly proportional to the frequency and the inductance. Here is a little mathematical example of how we would use it. Let's say in our AC circuit, we set the source to 3000 Hertz. The inductor is 10 millihenries. By subbing in our values, 2 times pi times the frequency, which is 3000, times the inductance, which is 10 by 10 to the minus 3, we get an answer of 188.5 ohms. Reactance is the same unit as resistance. This is really important when you get to a little bit more complicated circuits where you have capacitors, resistors, and inductors, and they're all out of phase with each other, and you have to keep track of something called impedance. But that is another video for another time. I hope you found this educational and useful. Happy circuiting. What do you think, Bambi? Did you learn about inductors? This is what happens sometimes. I teach a subject in the most advanced ways, and then I question the most basic physics, and I need to pause in the middle of a video to think thoroughly, and I have to go back to the most fundamental physics to make sure that it's all right in my head. Have you wondered how thermoses keep your coffee hot? Relatively speaking, or how liquid nitrogen dewars are able to keep liquid nitrogen at minus 196 degrees Celsius. To answer this question, we need to cover the 3 fundamental ways heat transfers. A little bit of quick revision: heat is a form of energy. In a basic introduction to physics, heat is a form of energy that makes the molecules go faster. We define temperature as the measurement of the average kinetic energy of the particles. If you're wondering what's going on my lap, I have a bunny asking for pets right now. nice cold water. Been filling up all our plastic water bottles and just putting them in the fridge. Ah, nice cold water. All right, gotta stay hydrated. This heat wave. Although it is a little bit better now, temperature-wise in Ireland. But it's like that for the rest of the. It's just, man. Damn, Daniel, that's some high IQ. Maybe you should be giving this lesson now on resistors instead of us. With IQ like that. I don't know. I don't know. Conrad, we're just honored you're here. The fact that you managed to get onto this stream is a miracle in itself. Buns. You not want to come in? Hi. If Buns is at the door, say hi, Buns. Okay, but if I pretend that I don't see her and she feels like she's, then she comes in. So she doesn't want to be here for the sake of being here. She wants to feel like she's somewhere where she's not allowed to be. To slow him down. Wouldn't it be bounced right back up though, Grim? Be like a, you know, a launch back. Hi, Bo. Hi, Chippy. Welcome in. Stealth Buns, yeah. Bambi, do you wanna? Are you sure you don't want to come in and hang out with us? I put another pillow back here, that she can hang out with us if she really wants to. I'm not sure what the question is, Arlie. Where did you get that shirt? This is actually by our wonderful friend, Nerduino. It's his merch. He does space science communication here on Twitch. He's a ex-NASA engineer. So if you want to check out his channel, of course do. But also if you click in through his channels, you can support his channel by buying this shirt. It's really, really cool. I like it. It's really cool. I actually got a compliment of it today. I was in town and a family of two, mum and dad and two kids, were on the escalator. And literally the mom says, "I love your shirt." Kids kind of didn't recognize for a second because we're like, you know, passing by. And then I hear the scream, "Oh, Artemis!" So it was very, very cute. If Nerduino comes into the chat, we definitely need to tell him that his shirt got highlighted by kids. I'd be very delighted to hear that. Pets are so, they are. Bambi's such a Bambi, you sure you don't want to come in? Have treats. See if she comes. I guess gravity early, yeah. I guess gravity. Instant follow. I need that shirt. Yeah, it's very, very cool. Congrats on being able to turn your device on, bub. But did I? Dun 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 dun. Up the electricity textbook so that we can slowly start. What I'm referencing, in case you guys are wondering, I teach a lot of my more advanced circuit analysis stuff from this textbook. I'm a big fan of this author, Lloyd. He does loads of books. He does one on data systems, electronic devices, and circuit analysis. Those are his 3 textbooks. Really love his work. The way he teaches is very, very good. Recommend them. But again, you don't need to buy all the books. Or would one of his contemporaries also have conceived the simplicity and beauty? Oh, there's so many amazing stuff. Like, yeah, it's very hard. I would say all amazing geniuses, Newton and Gauss and Euler and all of the amazing people, what they contributed and discovered would have inevitably been found by another person or by a group of people in the future. For their contribution and their originality is just how much they independently were able to do, which is incredible. Standing on shoulders of giants, but also how early they were able to do it. And I think that's a lovely way of thinking about it, that from one perspective, you give credit where it's due to their genius. And number two, you also kind of give credit to all of mankind. Now, maybe I am ambitious about that, because there's definitely a lot of negativity with mankind as well. No way! Did you study all of them, Cynical? As in, was that the reference textbook that you had to use? I'm just gonna go into the oh yeah, In Memory of Thomas Floyd. Yeah, he's not around anymore. What I like about, not this book, but the Electronic Devices book of his, what I really like about that one is the application sections. The application sections are great. Like, maybe again it's because I'm an applied physicist, but also there's a really bad, like, I actually want to make a YouTube video about this, about my experience with engineers specifically that I have. And it's not engineering teachers. The lecturers and the teachers might be a complete, but anytime I try to teach a special crowd of engineers come for me quite often and give out about my teaching and my explanation. They'll say something like, because I obviously teach physics, they'll say something like, why are you wasting your time teaching this? Or why are you wasting your time explaining this? You're making it more difficult than it is. Just learn off the equation. I hear this complaint and comment a lot in person and online all the time from a branch of engineering. And it kind of, I really don't like that. This thought process of just learn off the equation. It's not... I really hope that this is not... that this has always been a thing, and it's just a minority that are very, very loud. But if that's the way people truly think in these areas, it's quite upsetting. It might be just like an exam thing as well. I'm not sure. I got it here in Ireland, Funs. At software dev degree. Ah, I see. Well, yeah, a lot of computer scientists do study a bit of electronics and a bit of physics. We teach it here as well. I don't recall hearing that in undergrad. I'm glad to hear that, Chippy, because it's very I really am not happy about that kind of idea. I guess that's what I just experienced just because I'm mass exposed to so many. So because I'm exposed to so many students, there's always going to be a bad bunch or a bad egg or a bad apple. But I guess that's the issue with anything. With any kind of system with an exam system based kind of thing. Just learn off the equation. But I guess that's kind of the issue that I have a little bit, is the thought process of you're making this more difficult than it is. That was the line that I saw or heard more than once. I was explaining the physics of a lot of electrical engineering aspects. Making it more difficult is just learn off the equation. I guess that was the part that made me kind of worried a bit. Oh yeah, and again, you were only exposed to your own year, you know? Right. So I'll start with page 92. 92 Ohm's law. No, I haven't. I haven't read that before. She wants to get her PhD in Trinity. Nice! Trinity is probably the most prestigious school in Ireland. Some would argue that it's not, but I don't make up the rules. It's in the rankings. So yeah. Yeah, same Motorman. I'm exactly the same. I have the exact same issue. If I don't understand how a thing works, I'm screwed. My learning off ability is so terrible. And it gets worse with age as well. You want Einstein hair? That's how you get Einstein hair. Sounds like when parents tell their children, it works because I said so, yeah. Right, I'm gonna move my keyboard, my mouse. Raw data is just a bonus. That's a fair assessment, Rocco. Welcome in. Hi, Tynek. Sounds like someone who couldn't understand the instructions to pour out water if they'd been written on the glass. Yeah, Atera has a lot of good introductory level shorts, or what are they called? Reels. Yeah, she did a lot of really good reels. Alright. So, look, Bo, we all have, in these days with the heat wave, I think we're all lucky to have any sort of functional brain right now. A functional brain is a delicacy. I'll actually clean. It's the camera. More of the whiteboard. I feel like I should get a good bit of whiteboard. Weird with the camera. Let me do up, guys. Better? I guess so. I'm a little bit confused with what's going on, but it's fine. It's fine. Okay. No, don't worry. We're just starting the lesson time next year. You're all good. I'm glad to hear that, my mini. I'm really, really glad to hear that. Because I get really, really worried when I get those comments and commentary towards me. I think it comes from a persona that some engineers, and not just engineers, but I think there is this weird behavior that I witness from STEM, and I put this delicately. It's not STEM bros. I think, is it tech bros? Of mightier than thou or holier than thou of other fields of science and other fields of like they're trashing humanities and so on and so forth in person as in jokes, but also online and all those. And there's this idea of engineering is so easy, you just learn off the equations. Engineering is so easy, you just need to do this. And people who can't do engineering can't do anything. That kind of commentary. It's very, very toxic, and it does come from this kind of not necessarily what's that word in American TV shows? The jocks. So it's not like jocks. Well, it is kind of jock mentality, even though they're not sporty, they're in tech. But there's like a hive mind with some bros and dudes, and I don't know. I'm going off on a rant here, and I'm not explaining my thought process very well. I guess I've never expressed my experience I've seen of people. It's just a weird culture I've noticed, especially online. It's in person as well, but in person they're a little bit more relaxed usually and slaggish. And then online it gets quite aggressive. There's titular. I don't know what that is. Yeah, I'm not sure where that culture comes from. They're really awful to humanities. And then humanities end up attacking STEM, and it's like, listen, most of STEM isn't like this. It's a very, very small group corner that is doing this. Yeah. Basically what I'm trying to get humanities to realize is STEM is not the enemy. It's the business people. We're going in there. We need to go against the business group. Anyways, while that war is happening, let's go on to start the introduction to electricity. So, I'm going to do a quick crash course on 3 concepts: voltage, current, and resistance. We might actually make a nice table. So the first one is going to be the parameter. The next thing is going to be the notation. And the next thing is going to be the unit. And the last thing I'm going to add is a water description. I'm not a big fan of this. I think this teaches you bad habits. But a lot of people do enjoy a water analogy when it comes to electricity. So I'll still introduce it. Long live the resistance! Here we go. The first parameter we'll talk about is voltage. Voltage, as you might see around in your life, is that big metal casing. As you're walking by, you can see a metal casing in a park or not far from your house, and it says keep clear, high voltage. And it is quite literally a potential. We tend to refer to it as a potential. It is the potential amount of work that can be done. I'm trying to avoid using too many words that are going to lead to current and resistance because it's cheating. But we will talk a little bit about it more in a second. I was okay with computer science students, but the gaming students were the ones to watch out for. It didn't even mix. Oh, I'm. It's interesting to see how there's these weird clusters of people. Computer science students are very lovely. I teach computer science over the very, very lovely. I'm trying to even think of the engineers specifically that I had this bad experience with. It wasn't even engineers. Like, it's not like electrical engineer, mechanical engineer. It's like a subset of engineers, of like jock engineers that get together. And they could be all different types of engineers. And I call them tech bros. And they could be a computer science group as well. They tend to be the weird commentary on education that I've experienced. Hi, Mido, welcome in. Yeah, tech bros, exactly. And I don't want to like pigeonhole everyone in it, but it has been my experience that has been quite negative with them. Hey, Spooky. When I was in school, we called them assholes. Yeah, there is that kind of Zora I'd explain it. Very weird. And I hate to paint people with a paintbrush, if that makes sense. And again, I'm not even attacking a class of engineers. It's just this weird subset of... But it's interesting to see a lot of you have this experience, that there is this weird group that think together and get really, really... Now, the notation is controversial, chat, and I might actually put a vote. In your nation, manage a poll. What is your symbol for voltage? For many people, it's U. For other people, it's V. I'm going to put in other because I had no idea. Maybe there are other things. So, what is the symbol that you are used to? I use V. Some of my lecturers used U, so it was quite 50-50 in my university. But I set up a poll if you guys want to vote. But I'll put in V and... Now, personally, I use V. And I'm going to go for it in a little while. I'm going to explain why. Because a lot of people argue the unit is the issue. And I'm going to argue against it. But until then. I remember. Hi, Kiwi. Welcome in, everyone. Oh, E. Is it E, not V, not U? No, it's E as well. That's right. Some people did have E. I hate E. E is even worse. E comes from, if I'm not mistaken, I'm happy to be corrected, it comes from the original, back in the early days, EMF, electromotive force. And it is slightly incorrect because when you have voltage drops and all those and potential differences, those are not EMFs by technicality. So I'm not a big fan of E at all. I'm not the biggest fan of using it. It's technically just incorrect. But that is my bread and butter. That is my personal opinion. Don't come after me. Yeah, it depends if it's potential difference or voltage or potential energy. It's very, very, yeah. We also use the symbol for terminal voltage. Usually used as a phase notation. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, it is an artifact of textbook inertia. That's what I've noticed as well. When I do see E, it's an ancient thing, or it's a lecturer who hasn't updated their lecture notes in 40 years. So yeah, I've noticed that. Now, the unit is not arguable. It is the unit volts. The letter V. And here is the controversy. The notation for voltage is V. In my case, I tend to use it. And then the unit is V. And most people, this is their argument. They will say, if you are using the letter V for the notation of voltage, it is confusing if the units are going to be used for V. If that is your argument, and this is a popular enough argument that I hear, my problem with this is that if you're confused whether it's a notation or a unit, you have no idea what's going on. There is bigger eggs to fry. No, bigger fish to fry. Is that the figure of speech I'm trying to think of? If you're getting confused whether you're dealing with units or notation, you're not even on the same page of what's going on in front of you. There are more basic and fundamental issues going on in understanding what you're solving or what you're seeing or what you're reading. So to me, if there is a confusion, there's more basic issues to be concerned with in that case. It should be understandable if you're seeing V units or V the parameter. Sometimes it even matter. But if you're confused in an equation, which one it is, then I have concern. Hi, Lair. Welcome in. Welcome in. Controversial content I stay up late for. Maybe it depends on your country. Yeah, it does. It does depend on your country. I know in Germany, Germany tends to use you. I could be wrong about that. Mainland Europe uses you. In Ireland, it's a mix between U and V. A lot of our education here is very Americanized, I would say. And the textbooks I reference are all American. I tend to like a lot of the American-based textbooks. Italy uses V. Now that you mentioned Italy, the unit volts. Here we go. The reason why we use the unit volts is to honor the electrochemical battery created in Lake Como. Now I know his museum and everything is in Lake Como. I don't know if Alessandro Volta did do everything in Lake Como. I could be wrong about that. Correct me if that's actually where he's from. But his museum and everything else is there. He did retire, I know, around that area in Como. But the battery is there. Alessandro Volta built the zinc copper plates, and the famous historical story, he licks it, he tastes the electricity, disputing against Galvani at the time about this whole idea of animal electricity, this God-given electricity fluid in creatures. Then after that, they probed and executed Englishmen with the first battery, one at the base of the neck, the other probe in the butthole, and a decapitated man arose from the dead, pretty much, and it was all over the news in the UK. I actually don't know if it was UK then, but whatever equivalent of the UK that was there. And a very, very important lady heard that in the news, and yes, that is the birth of Frankenstein. Yes, up in the butthole. Technically incorrect, and I'm not a fan of. Yeah, so it's weird. When I teach circuit analysis, I tend to teach conventional current. But in electronic devices, when I teach BJT, logic gates, transistors, MOSFETs, all that, I teach electron current. So I teach both ways, and either electron current or conventional current. It just depends on what you're using. So my teaching style is picked up basically in this case. Which one do I use? Do I use conventional current as a teacher or electron current as a teacher? So I teach conventional current when I'm doing just circuit analysis or just basic circuit design systems and so on and so forth. But if I'm teaching basis of electronic devices, a bit more fundamental physics as to why electronic devices work, then I have to use current. Because you need to know where the electrons are going and where the whole current is going. You can rewire your brain and think of the the whole current then as the conventional current. That way, hopefully it'll work. His career also includes Lake Maggiore. And I think it is Pavia now that I'm thinking about it. Yes, it is. I was trying to think of the university. Now, the water analogy for voltage. So usually in a lot of systems and places, people describe electricity and introduction to electricity using water analogies. So in the case of voltage, what we tend to refer to is a mine. Thank you so much, Flens, for the sub. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Is as a water tank. It is the amount of pressure we're applying to our system. So let's say we have a huge water tank with a little tube at the bottom. This height difference is very dependent creates a very dependent pressure. So if we have this water analogy, the higher the voltage, the higher the height, the more pressure we're creating in terms of the possibility of the flow of water in this case. I say possibility because it's going to depend on two more parameters. Or one parameter, we'll say. But that is the water analogy that we tend to use. I'm hearing this for the first time. Yeah, so a lot of universities and schools teach a water thing. I am personally not a big fan of. I still do it just because I'm a big fan of also, what's the word? Diversifying my education, or trying to cater for as many needs of students as possible in one go. So some students, this might work for their brain. We might as well do it for them. So, I think I actually should have started with the word current. I think current would have been the better parameter to start with. But here's the second parameter, current. I think this one is not disputed for what symbol we use for current. I think it's generally a blanket statement here. Hi JPR, welcome in. Good evening. I, yes, excellent. Here we go. Use I. Capital I for current. And again, the unit for it is also not disputed. Oh, sorry, the lighting. I'd actually just move it here so you guys can see. Go. I might actually get a new marker. Oh, my poor knees. I'm getting old, chat. Getting old. Some squats. I think Pirates write it as I, though I'm not positive. So yes, the unit then is an ampere. Also called amps for short. And the letter for it is a capital A. Now, just to give you a realistic unit, when we work with electronics, we tend to talk a little bit about volts. We'll say 5 volts, 3.3 volts. When you work around with your microcontrollers and electronics, you'll tend to work in volts. We rarely work with amps. Just to put in perspective, when I work with batteries, we do actually work with like up to 2 amps. And that, but that is very rare. Most people do not get to see a full amp of current in their workload because that's a lot of current. Usually we tend to work in milliamps, even sometimes in microamps, 10 to the minus 3 all the way down to 10 to the minus 6. It is a smaller unit and it is the one that we tend. Probably too far ahead, but uppercase I for DC current and lowercase I for AC. I actually don't do that either. I still use capital I. I use lowercase I occasionally. What do I use it for? Oh, I avoid using it. I think it's because I'm a physicist. And the reason is because of the imaginary aspect of it. Even though we use J in circuit analysis theory, you know, when you start talking about inductors, capacitors in the complex region, when you start thinking in that sense, I guess it must be because it's the physicist in me. Anyways, when we do calculus, I tend to use lowercase I. When you express something in AC circuits with dx's and dy's and so on and so forth. Yeah, like it's the limitations. It's when physics. Because the problem with electrical engineering is that it crosses 3 borders. It crosses maths, physics, and obviously engineering, and everyone has their own language. There's a funny history. I don't know if G. Thevenin in YouTube you can still see this. Thevenin is credited with Thevenin's theorem, but it wasn't actually Thevenin who originally discovered it. It was Helmholtz. Helmholtz discovered Thevenin's theorem a long time ago on basic physics principles and had a whole derivation based on it. But because he was a physicist and his mathematics was batshit crazy in comparison to most of the electrical engineers who were working in that realm, no one could read or understand it, so it wasn't really interpreted or taken advantage of. Thevenin discovered it later on, almost like 50 years later or something, but independently, and the notations that that we use to this day. But it's just an interesting thing to think about. Hi, welcome in, B-Man, welcome in. Sorry, we'll go back to Zio's comment. I do wonder what happens to notation. Oh, I was trying to read your comments here, I couldn't see it. What is this Helmholtz thing? So Helmholtz was the one who discovered Thevenin's theorem. Thevenin. No, Thevenin. You just... Oh, really? I associate him with thermodynamics. So this is the weird thing about a lot of these people. They actually worked across the field. So when you say Helmholtz, I think of Helmholtz free energy, and I think about the thermodynamic potentials and Maxwell's relations. That's what I think of. Just raise the come across electron volt. So electron volt is not usually used in electrical engineering. That's like a particle physics thing mostly, and it's not a voltage. It's a different. Yeah, thank you, Conrad. It's an energy unit. It's a different thing. We don't. It's not very electrical engineering. Used in particle physics. Yeah, for you it's thermodynamics as well. Yes, am I right in thinking that Helmholtz coil is also used in what definition is it? The definition of current. What's that weird definition that had to be defined about two infinite wires lined up beside each other? Hi Andreas, welcome in, welcome in. Magnetic field that is induced by the other. What permeability I'm thinking of? Anyways. Now, in the analogy of water, current is, wait for it, chat. What is it going to be? It is going to be the float of water. Oh, the rate of flow of water. In fact, if you dissect the unit for current, what is current ultimately in an electric circuit? It's going to be the flow of electrons, right? It's going to be the flow of charge. So let's think about that. What does that mean? Well, electrons are the things that are moving around, arbitrarily speaking. So they're moving, they have charge, they have negative charge. It's them traveling. How many of them are traveling per unit time? So current is charge per unit time. Now, we were kind of talking about it earlier about which symbols that we use. But remember, we have lowercase I, because we have a dt parameter. I think that's the definition of it ultimately. You have to express it in a calculus form, if I remember correctly. You really want to be pedantic about the definition of current. Ampere's circuit law? What's Ampere's circuit law again? Is that just Kirchhoff's current law? I don't remember what Ampere's circuit law is. Hey, I think that's the one random. Yes, I think that's the right one. Okay, so last parameter we're going to talk about is when you have voltage, the higher your tank of container of water, the faster your flow of current. Okay, so we up the voltage, we keep upping the voltage, our current keeps going and going and going. Technically that relationship gets a bit weird. We're going to come up with the ideas of infinities and so on and so forth. But what is stopping the flow of water in this case? If you look at this tube, what could make this flow of water faster or slower? Or not even faster or slower. I change that analogy because we're limited by how much voltage we have. How do we make the flow of water, the amount of water flow, smaller or bigger? Amount of water. So the rate would be the same, but the amount of water. Well, we can make the tube either bigger or smaller. And this is called resistance. Exactly, reduce the air. Resistance is futile. The notation for it, capital R. Don't do a curly R. The curly R is it called reluctance in magnetic theory? Am I right in thinking that? So do be careful of that. This unit for it is rho. Oh my God, it's not. The unit for it is ohm. And it's a drunk-looking horseshoe. What's a curly R? So a curly R is quite literally curly. Like the Twitch streamer curly. I don't know. You just curl it like crazy. This is the symbol for reluctance. I could be wrong. Correct me on that. And that is in magnetic current theory. So we do want to avoid using curly R. I think I mentioned this just because some people's handwriting is very elegant and that's lovely. I love handwriting that's beautiful, but if you exaggerate these kind of things, also flaws to the madness. So fancy, the Borg. Now, in the analogy of water, when we talk about resistance, resistance is the thing, it's in the name. It's literally, current is flowing in my direction, it needs to go to the other potential, and there's someone stopping it. Yes, in my analogy back a few years ago, I used Little French Men because I always think of Vive la Resistance. So it's literally things stopping the flow of electrons. Some material is a very good resistance. Some material isn't a very good resistance material. So there's all these different types of concepts. I'm glad that Devon jumped in there to ensure that it is reluctance. In this case, it's the thickness of the tube. You remember your fluid dynamics. If we make the tube tighter, we're going to increase the resistance. Suddenly, make the tube smaller, only so much water can flow in that moment, and we reduce the flow of water in that case. How good is water at resistance? It's quite resistive material, I believe. It depends on the type of water, I suppose. If it's distilled deionized water, pretty good, pretty resistive. But water has a lot of other components in there. But doesn't that make the flow of water faster? Yes, but the amount of water that flows is much less. But wait, if there's a smaller tube, doesn't there have to be a height? If I'm thinking about Bernoulli's equation, there has to be a height difference as well. Am I wrong in thinking that? Can anyone remember your fluid dynamics? Very good at resisting. Water is very mechanically resistant, i.e. it kills the energy that gets ingested. Unicode has glyphs for those fancy letter symbols. Oh, really? I remember when I was coding on the OLED screen, I struggled with degrees and units, but we did eventually find those units. Those parameters in the code to be able to show them. Welcome in, Robert. Welcome in. So I'm not the biggest fan of the water analogies. Why? Well, a lot of people tend to actually get confused with it, especially when we talk about resistors in parallel and saying things like, oh, the voltage across resistors in parallel is the same. And kids then are like, well, how does that work with this analogy? Because you have two different paths. How can the potential be the same? Now, I have explanations for this, and the water analogy does still work for me. But I think a lot of kids, when they're young and they're, in their first, second year studying this, it does become more complex. It's still quite difficult at times to get these analogies down, in my opinion. I would love for kids to just get down with electrons. I know this sounds a bit weird, but start accepting that electrons are real. Let's drop this water analogy as soon as possible. If you need it in your early days, okay. But the sooner you can start accepting that electrons are real and governing your world, the sooner we can get into more complex things. And again, I'm trying to avoid this mentality, this idea of learning off equations. Just like, again, this weird thought process that many people have in university, which is, this is so easy, just learn off the equation. First of all, well, I don't know about first of all, but life isn't going to be like that. You're going to have access to all the equations, always. It's about how you use them. It's about understanding your circuit. It's about understanding your system and adapting to the situation each time. If you're just learning off the equation, reciting it, rote learning, what use are you going to be after you graduate and after you get employed and after you try to be a useful member of society? Not going to, anyone can learn off an equation, I say, as a person who can't learn off shit, but it's about what you're able to do with it. We're all just electrical forces in empty space. Yeah, pretty much. All hail our electron overlords. Now, what we might do, if you're interested in, we will talk a little bit about Ohm's law, of course. Ohm's law is pretty incredible. I like Ohm's law because study electromagnetism. You're going to come across Maxwell's equations. I actually think you can maybe see them. See those guys up there? Oh, they're a bit blurry. They're going in and out of focus. But Maxwell equations are on board. The 4 equations that govern the electromagnetic universe. And everything in electromagnetism, so everything in electricity or everything in electromagnetism and even in other fields is defined based on these equations. These equations can explain everything. Except, sort of, Ohm's law. You can't actually fully extract Ohm's law out of Maxwell's equations. It's actually pretty interesting that that's one of those parameters that are just not extractable. So anyways, it's just a little interesting thought. I know a lot of people can jump on the bandwagon of saying, but you can sort of with this and that and assuming this and that. From a pure perspective, and that's what I think was really cool, remember, about laws. When people ask, what's the difference between a theory and a law? A law is kind of, you know what? I observe the universe. Every morning when I get up at 7 o'clock in the morning to have coffee, I see a pigeon fly by and it poops. Every day at 7 o'clock. It just flies by and poops right in the middle. And it happens every single goddamn day. And so I write a set of laws, I define the pigeon's color and the rise of the sun and time switches and all of these different things. And no matter what happens, I don't have an explanation why. Maybe I can kind of theorize a few fun hypotheses, but generally speaking, I don't have a good explanation as to why the pigeon poops every single day at 7 o'clock in the morning. So that is a law, the pigeon poop law, exactly. This is the pigeon poop law. A theory then goes about explaining as to why, and it turns out that pigeon has a... and it rises at 5 o'clock in the morning, it eats a whole bunch of food, and in the process of eating that food, it comes through here, there's a weird lighting effect in that moment, and we've studied that the difference of light forces pigeons to poop. I'm making this all up, by the way, on the spot, and that is why the pigeon poops always at the window at 7 o'clock. That with a couple of more data to back up everything I said there, theory. Those are the two differences between laws and theories. So sometimes a law is something, you know what, you can't feckin' argue with me, it's true, while a theory has a bit more explanation. And a great example of this is gravity. Newton's gravitational law versus Einstein's gravitational theory. So those are two, that's kind of the general gist. There's a bit more material or more asterisks, like a bit more footnotes to this explanation that I gave, but just so you kind of understand the difference. So Ohm's law is true, generally speaking. There's a few ifs and buts. The resistance of certain materials is different. The temperature goes up and all of this and all of that. Listen, we're going to take Ohm's law. It works. We've observed it. We're happy with it. We're keeping it because it makes everything easy. And this is Ohm's law. Do you know what? I'll do something else first. Voltage is directly proportional to current. That means the higher the voltage, the higher the potential, the more the current flows. Chat, that's amazing, isn't it? That makes freaking sense, doesn't it? I don't think that's that controversial. The more of a water potential pipe, the more height we increase, the more that water will flow. Makes sense. However, that's not an equation. That's an, what's this called again? Inequality? No. What is this called? Not an inequality. Partiality equation? Relationship. Yeah. Relationship would be the best word I could think of now. Well, I didn't think of it. You did, youth. Now, to make it an equation, though, we do need to put in a constant. If you ever see these kind of symbols like this, directly proportional, right? What you need to remember is that it means that there's no constants in there. So we need to put in a constant. In this case, our constant, resistance. So there's going to be an interesting relationship. If we want to increase current, we need to decrease resistance. If we want, or we could just increase the voltage. Both options possible. If we want to increase the current, we could increase the voltage or decrease the... Did I say that? I think I just said that. If we want to decrease the current, we could increase the resistance or decrease the voltage. But usually in our systems, if any of you are messing around with your electronics, with your Arduinos, what are the two set voltages always? 3.3 volts and 5 volts. We actually can't control shit, basically, in a lot of our voltage situations. So how do you adjust everything? This guy. So if you take any component, anything, like anything that has a circuit board, I don't even know what this is. I think this is a motor controller, right? You take anything like that, to control voltages, to control current, you need these bad boys here. Bad boys. These bad boys are resistors. They are designed to make sure that your world, your circuit world, doesn't go to oopsie, basically. Exactly, you're always stuck with the power source. You can't really control power source that much, but you can control current by shoving in resistors. This is the law that everything in circuit analysis goes back to. I love this. So, if you study electrical engineering, you'll come up with a lot of equations. There, you'll derive and study the what is it called? The potential divider equation, the current divider equation. There are all these fun equations that you'll derive over time. Transistor relationships, all that good stuff. And you can learn it all off. That's fine. You can learn how to derive it. But it all goes back to Ohm's law. Everything in electrical analysis goes back to Ohm's law. Even there's a new Veritasium video that came out on the electrical engineering thing. Did you guys see that? The what is it called? I think it's called the Black Magic Circle. the other dub for the scary graph, yes. If you follow back, is that what it's called? The Smith chart, yes. If you go back to everything on that chart, it all goes back to Ohm's law. Everything on that chart goes back to it. In some shape, way, or form, it's all derived from it. Just, yeah, again, if you're interested in going, exactly, Almighty Ohm. We need to worship the ground that people walk, or Ohm walked on, to be able to discover this, because it's incredible how much work it did. Saved me 30 minutes watching that video then. Oh, I highly recommend it still. I know there was a lot of negative comments on that YouTube video, and people saying things like, even Veritasium can't explain this video or this topic well, but I thought they did a really good job. I know that there's a lot more to it, that graph, but I think Veritasium did a very good job of really holding people's hands into explaining, you know, impedance and, oh, my brain. I have reluctance in my head because we're talking about the magnetic stuff and now I can't get it out of my head. Anyways, reactance, thank you. I have resistance and reluctance in my head. Reactance and all the good stuff in there, and the power transmission and radio transmission and all that stuff. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was really, really informative. It explained how the construction and the historical structure of those circles, how infinity is in there. I thought that was class. But I guess that's just my opinion. Figuring out this was not easy at the time. No, it isn't. Now, if you're a young scientist, either engineer, physicist, whatever it is, and you're studying this Ohm's law, a lecturer will always ask you, what is the flaw of Ohm's law? Or what is the limitation of Ohm's law? And this is a very classic introduction to, you know, just because it's a law doesn't mean it's always blatantly right, no matter what. There are conditions, of course. What's the issue, the beginner-friendly issue with Ohm's law? I kind of hinted towards it earlier. Assumes current is flowing, true, but that's okay. We do want current flowing through it. So the type of material, kind of. So the issue is that if you do a real experiment on this, there's going to be a few losses, but also we tend to talk about heat. That V is equal to IR is the linear relationship. Slope is R until it gets too hot. When it becomes a bit too hot, it doesn't become so linear anymore. It slopes up. Slopes up. And you can kind of already know that instinctually. So any of you suffering in the heat wave? Have any of you noticed that your battery is dying on your phone a lot sooner than usual? I noticed it personally. Did anyone notice that their phone is dying way feckin' quicker in this heat wave than usual? Exactly. So it is something to be mindful of the fact that heat is an SOB. And this is a general thing across physics, whether it be talk about superconductors, quantum computing, even in Ohm's law. Heat can be such an a-hole to deal with, and it is one of the most combative things that we have to deal with. Try and combat heat. How to extract it, how to control it. Fortunately, the laws of thermodynamics are vicious and cruel. Well, that's what you have to do when we live in a realm of entropy. So heat is always going to be an issue. So is Ohm's law, we see, actually a simplified version like relativity? Yes. Yes, Zora, I would agree. Yes, say yes. And because Ohm's law is simplified, we say simplified, it was very difficult at the time, it still works. So we're going to do a whole bunch of analysis and stuff, because the idea behind it is that your stuff shouldn't be getting hot in the first place where V is equal to IR starts fucking up. If your electronics is getting that hot, there's something bad happening. Very, very bad. Well, for example, in a lot of batteries, electrochemical systems, when it becomes heat, when heat gets involved, there's all these little things that happen. First of all, expansion. Expansion happens, which means if the molecules are larger, if there's a semi-permeable membrane or something like that, they can't cross over at a high efficiency anymore. Some reactions become more favorable than others, so the efficiency drops incredibly because of that. So all of these little things add up to why heat is bad for most batteries. Now again, I'm only an expert in like flow-based system, like electrolytic-based batteries. So I can't think on the spot exactly the little things for each battery. For example, most of us have lithium-ion batteries in our phones. We need to look it up exactly which one is the worst culprit.
That still only counts as one.
Smoky circuits are bad, exactly. And then add heat sinks and fans, exactly. Very good idea to add some. Actually, the idea of heat sinks, explaining what that is really, really cool too. I would love to take apart my PC for my students when I teach thermodynamics, just to show them the cooler. Have the Nocturne, you know, the giant layered plates one. Just normal kind of CPU cooler. But it's kind of nice to show that to kids. Especially kids nowadays. Like, we knew some PC parts even if you weren't a PC gamer back in the day. But kids nowadays, unless they're building their own PCs for gaming, they wouldn't know a lot of these terms. A lot of what these things are. Alright chat, what I'm going to do is we're going to do some problem solving with B is equal to IR now. I'm going to start obviously with some basic circuits. We're kind of going to be covering Kirchhoff's law and Kirchhoff's current law and voltage law. Now, a lot of, again, people come to me, can you teach me Kirchhoff's current law? Can you teach me Kirchhoff's voltage law? Just Ohm's law. It is somewhere deep inside all of those laws. It's just all coming back to classical. My big advertisement for remembrance of this topic is always remember that energy cannot be created or destroyed. Have we heard of this law? Kind of a version, a fluffy version of the. So when we're going to be dealing with V is equal to IR, when we're going to be dealing with circuits, we need to just keep track of be creating energy out of nowhere. We can't. And we can't be losing it magically somewhere else. Do need, yeah. Do you not pronounce the choff as chop? No. So when I asked a few of my German friends, if I'm not mistaken, Kirchhoff is the way I was told, closer to the pronunciation. And a lot of English speakers tend to say Kirchhoff then. In neither of those cases is the ch sound. Could be wrong, but I asked several times when learning, I was teaching it, I asked Germans. Look it in. In this house, we obey the laws of thermodynamics, exactly. I try my best. I know I butcher it sometimes, but I try my best to honor pronunciation of most. Well, do not ask me to pronounce that Dutch name. Who am I thinking of? Christian. Oh, Huygens. I'm not going to be able to pronounce that name for sure. Oh god. That's not happening. German spelling it is. Exactly, yeah. Kirchhoff. People know. Well, look, again, we can all try our best to pronounce people's names correctly. Gustav is a fun name. It is a good name. I agree. I'll take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to do some circuit stuff. I'll be right back, chat. Will I make a cup of tea, actually? I don't want to drink. It's only 3 o'clock though. Drinking alcohol at this time of day is inappropriate, I think. Yeah, Gu, it's very controversial. It's very hard to find the pronunciation of Kirchhoff's name. So it's actually quite hard. You'll find a YouTube video and they pronounce it differently as well. And even, to be honest, even there's some dispute a little bit with the Germans. I pronounce Boltzmann. I pronounce it as Boltzmann. But yeah. Anyways, I'll be right back. To use in our setup with the potato. So one of the plates that we're going to be using, as you can see, is zinc, and the other is copper. If you want to get access to these metals at home, usually a copper coin can do the trick, and a zinc coated nail. So let's build our battery. Here I've hammered in the zinc and the copper plates, and so now there's a potential difference between them, and it's going to use the potato's juices, quite literally, as the electrolyte to pass current through. An LED requires about 1.6 to 2 volts to light up, specifically the red LED. In my past experience, it takes about 3 potatoes to actually get the LED to light up, but in this case, I was very lucky and it only required 2. You add the potatoes in series to increase the voltage. We don't need to increase the current, because first of all, there is sufficient current density, and generally speaking, LEDs require very little current. If I needed to increase the current, I would put them in parallel. What do we mean by current density? Well, take the zinc plate for example. If all of this was immersed in the potato, every single surface of this metal can contribute to the current. However, if I only immersed half of this zinc plate in the potato, only about half of the current, possibly at any given moment in time, could flow. This is what we mean by current density. It's current per unit area. My rabbit is being weird. I think she's judging me. So when you put potatoes one after the other in series, you're building up the voltage. But the current is always going to be limited by your worst immersed plate. What do I mean by that? Have you ever heard of the figure of speech that your team is defined by your worst player? Well, that's exactly what happens to potatoes when they're put into series. Whatever is the smallest surface area plate that is immersed in the potato will be the current density that will be maximally achieved. It doesn't matter if you increase all the other ones. If one of them is limiting your current, that's the cutoff point. You can play around with this by putting your multimeter in series and slightly pulling out or pushing in one of your less immersed plates. This should affect the current measurement. The electric potential for copper is 0.34 volts when compared to hydrogen. And for zinc, it is minus 0.76. So that gives us about a 1.1 volt, which means that potentially we have 1.1 volts in each potato. As you can see from these measurements though, that's not true. Where is the remaining voltage coming from? Well, there's actually a lot of complicated processes, but chances are it's got to do with the internal resistance of the potato itself. If you study any bit of electronics, sometimes you are forced to take into consideration the internal resistance of your battery or voltage supply system. It's usually added as a resistor in series, and so you measure its drop by I times R. This is the exact same case in our system. Now there is resistance between the interface of the metals with the contacts of the clips and obviously the wires, but most of it, chances are coming from the potato itself. Why? You might ask, well, why is there an electric potential difference between zinc and copper? And in fact, pretty much any plates. You can test this with aluminium, iron, different types of metals. Generally speaking, it's got to do with the work function of the electrons. Some metals want to give their electrons out more than others. It gets a little bit more complicated in more advanced physics, but that is a very nice introductory level to the concept. And this is why I think the potato battery is amazing. We covered the concepts of internal resistance, current in series and parallel, voltage in series and parallel, electrochemical potentials, discussed current density, and in the process got to build something and mess around with real live objects. I think this is a very powerful tool to teach students about these concepts. I better go. That bunny looks like she's about to murder me. This was a very difficult video to record. I found so many amazing gems of games that have amazing physics and concepts in them, but I did rank them and finally list my top 5. To give a little bit of background, I've been gaming since I was about 5-6 years old. My first completed game was Doom, and I've continued gaming all throughout my education until I reached my prime adulthood. And I also have a background in physics, my PhD is in physics, and I'm a physics lecturer and researcher to this day. so I understand and know a little bit about the physics that is being used in these games. I'd like to start with the premise that I'm not including games like Kerbal Space Program and Portal, which is the games that you might expect if you Google top physics-esque games. The reason being is their physics is on the nose. Kerbal Space Program has amazing Newtonian physics in it, and is very sound and I think is an amazing educational tool, but that was its selling point. The same with Portal. Rather, I would like to share the games that I thought weren't necessarily advertising great physics, were just showing for a bit of entertainment and a bit of banter, and it just happened to be fantastic physics. Honorable mentions go to Subnautica and Timberborn. If I was a tofu, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba, say I had all the tofus in the world. Yeah, Euler is really interesting. So I used to pronounce Euler? Actually, I don't know how I used to pronounce. I was thinking about drinking alcohol already. Look at me, chat. I'm being so good. It's so tempting. You found the rabbit? No, Bambi's upstairs. But anytime I go to the bathroom, so obviously it takes only like 3 minutes to pee, wash your hands. But usually the delays are petting. So if I'm ever missing for 2. Vodka orange. Listen, Spooky, I promise it's this knockoff little version of Lucozade Sport. I'm getting my electrolytes in. We're all sweating buckets in this heat wave. Good way to keep those electrolytes running, you know? Well, you are right, Motor, actually, that he did change the resistance. But if the resistance is not constant, think about what that means to the slope when you plot V over I. If R is not constant, it means going to bend. That with temperature, there's going to be a different relationship with it. You are right. With temperature, resistance affects current and voltage. R in brackets T. Temperature coefficient chart, that's the one. I never really did much with the temperature coefficient chart in... Yeah. I guess we never really did. Well. Anywho. So, what we're going to do is, I'm actually going to draw a circuit and we're going to start solving. We're going to solve maybe some resistors in parallel and series. And then after that, maybe make up some BS circuits and see if we can solve it. There's going to be a reason why engineers, electrical engineers, develop a lot of easier equations. It all goes back to Ohm's law, but there are easier relationships. My gain is really low, that's why. Goes, hear me there? Something that I didn't show is circuit symbols. So, in engineering and in physics and science, when we draw circuits, we draw weird diagrams, linear looking diagrams. They look like a secret code sometimes if you look at it from some perspective. But the reason is because if you've actually seen a real circuit, do an example of a real circuit. You know the way when in a lab report you're asked to draw a diagram, and they tend to say draw a block diagram or simplified diagram, because if you take a picture of your setup, it looks a bit confusing. Imagine saying, this is the circuit I build. Like, how would you explain this? Like, you take a picture of this and say, this is a circuit I built. That says absolutely fecking nothing. So we do draw circuit diagrams instead. Circuit diagrams are very nice, handy structural displays of all those components so that if anyone wants to recreate it, they can follow it nice and simply. Yeah, there are different symbols for resistors. I use the squiggly one. I know, controversial apparently. Spooky is really obsessed with the fact that I use squiggly resistors. He's morbidly obsessed with my squiggly lines. Okay, so this is what a typical diagram looks like. I love how, Spooky, you mentioned that, like, why am I using Soviet archaic symbols? If I'm not mistaken, I always reference actually American textbooks, and it's the American textbooks that use the squiggly lines. So, you know what? Not even a Soviet issue. Can't even blame the Soviets for that one. Yeah, them too. Okay. So this would be a typical circuit diagram. Welcome in, Pink, Emma. Of something that is called a voltage source, shock and awe, a battery, for example. And this is the symbol for a resistor. Now, typically resistors look like this.
That still only counts as one.
And it's right. Spooky was teasing me there, but they are in modern days. They look like rectangles. We tend to draw them as rectangles too. They kind of look like rectangles. Shit, I don't know. Pulled out that guy out of. Anyways. Now, in the circuit, what we've noted is that by looking at this, I know this is a battery or a voltage supply of some sort. And how we know is that in physics and science and in these circuit diagrams, when we have a big line, that's the positive side. When we have a small line, that's the negative side. Now, why did I mention positive and negative? Because I haven't mentioned this really properly yet. Well, this is because of current flow. In this case, current flows from positive to negative. Does it though? I want you to close your eyes and recall your very basic electrostatics. You have a negatively charged electron. Where does an electron go? Does it go to a positive plate or does it go to a negative plate, chat? Exactly. Electrons actually go this way. And the story I always use is obviously Benjamin Franklin. And the idea behind it is that he described charge in very unique ways using credit and debit, and he explained how the Leyden jars were operating, which was fantastic. But again, not only did they not know about electrons at the time, they didn't even know about the freaking atom at the time, which was exceptionally amazing that Benjamin Franklin did still interpret this idea of charge built up on one side, charge built up on the other, and they cancel each other out, and so on and so forth. Anyways, 50-50 guess. It goes one direction. A lot of people actually argue about that 50-50 guess. It wasn't that it was a 50-50 guess. There was a positive flow of something in that direction. We tend to actually use this terminology in electronic devices as whole current. And so it goes in this direction. Because again, they don't know any better. So, for argument's sake, and from here on in, I want you to dissociate the fact that electrons exist. When we do circuit analysis theories and analysis on these circuits, I never use electron flow. I always use conventional. And the reason is because that's how circuit diagrams are read to this day. I will use electron theory though, or electron flow, when we start dealing with electronic devices, when I want to explain how a BJT works, how does a MOSFET work, how does a logic gate circuit work. Then we will be using electron theory because it explains the physics of what's going on. But again, if you need your brain to work a little bit backwards, think about it as whole current. Again, if you understand what I'm saying this. Why is it explained like this? It goes like this, but actually no. Look, it is, the world is that way. Carbon film doesn't handle big VA, fair enough. It is unfortunate that we have a reverse current. It is, it just makes it a little bit of confusing, but honestly it doesn't matter. If you follow electron flow, or electron direction, it's fine. It works. A lot of circuit analysis still works. Where does the problem lie though? Start mixing them up halfway. So whatever way you're down, that's fine. If you want to go conventional, go conventional. If you want to go electron, you can go electron. But the most important part is you stick with it. I recommend going conventional just because exam systems are going to be designed that way. Publications, data sheets, all of that, circuit diagram designs are all going to be based on current. So you might as well stick to it. Anyways, let's suppose we have a typical battery in the house, 9 volts. And we're going to use a typical resistor value of 470. These lines show a wire. And in this case, we have something called a closed circuit. Lo and behold, it means our circuit is closed. If I were to do this, this will be called an open circuit. If this was an open circuit, it would mean that these two guys are not closed, they're not connected, there's nowhere for the electrons to flow, there is no flow of current. In this case, there is no flow of electricity. This is how switches work. In fact, I'll show you even a symbol for a switch. This is a symbol for a switch. It's closed on an open switch, like that. There we go. So this is an open switch. Nothing's happening right now. I'm supplying 9 volts from the battery. I have a battery, it's 9 volts, I'm supplying it. The resistor is 470, but nothing is happening. Now, what if? Close it. Now we have flow of current. And we can use Ohm's law, E is equal to IR, solve that. Now, we know V, we know R, we don't know I. So we rearrange the equation. V over R is equal to I. Our voltage is 9 volts. Our resistance is 470 ohms. If anyone has a calculator, it'd be amazing if you could answer. Oh, thank you very much, Zir. 0.019 amps. We're going to take it one step further and say 19 milliamps. Remember I said that when we deal with electronic circuits, we rarely deal with amps. Most of the time we're going to be dealing with milliamps because amps is a lot of flow of current. It's quite dangerous. Like I said, when I work with my own inventions of batteries in a lab, we work with like 2.5 amps tops. That is how, like, amperage is the scary stuff. We need to, obviously voltage directly proportional with it and all that good stuff, but it's the current that's the danger part. Hey, do we have any questions so far? How I used Ohm's law? Are we happy with this? Have a voltage source, a resistor, wires, these lines show wires, and that's the switch. Hybrid Heathen points at themselves and says they're happy, which is great news. Great news all around. Glad to hear that. Let's clean up the board. Once the heat comes down, I will go back to 3D printing. I know I haven't 3D printed anything in months. We have our Tinkercad project still waiting to have Bob. I know. But it's too hot to print. I haven't actually used my 3D printers in a month, I think now. I know, I've just 2 of them sitting there idly doing. And I bought a fume extractor. Bought an elephant trunk, but I need to design some stuff for it. I want to reduce my consumption of not PC PLA. A rheostat doesn't it follow Ohm's law? It does, yeah. It's just you can change the resistance of it, but it will still follow Ohm's law. That's because you're on YouTube, Nerdox. I can't get YouTube chat to work, unfortunately. So Twitch, this is just Twitch chat because I'm streaming both on Twitch and YouTube. That's why. 470 ohm resistor value comes from the E series of preferred numbers. Yeah, there's really weird, unique numbers for resistors. They come in weird pairs. 330, 220, 1K, 5K. Sorry, not even 5K. 5.1K. There's weird numbers for them. There's a whole story behind it. Just stuck with it because tech builds a lot faster than the understanding of electricity. Then what's the difference between an ohmic and non-ohmic circuit? Well, if it's a non-ohmic circuit, it just doesn't follow Ohm's law. But rheostat doesn't obey. So a rheostat is just a resistor. Am I wrong? Am I confusing my words? Am I crazy? So you can set it to 500, or you can set it to 1000, or you can change it depending what is needed. But that's usually what we use it for. Like a little adjustable resistor in our circuit, because usually when you have a system in place, I use a rheostat, for example, in my battery. Sometimes the current needs to be controlled a little bit, like quite crudely, quite mechanically. So you'd adjust it ever so slightly with the rheostat instead of like physically stopping the circuit and changing it. At least it's a live resistor in there that you don't have to physically change. The goat has done it again. Hi Tetsu, yes, Medjay did a wonderful work of art for our new YouTube video. Very, very good. I thought that milli means division by 100, not 1000. That's micro. No, milli is division by 1000. Micro is a division by million. Reloaded. So centi is it's that a pot is a bit different. A pot is this. So a pot is one that has 3 nodes. You can have 3 nodes in this one, and this one can shift across. So let's say the resistance from here to here is 10,000, but from here to here is 4,000, and then from here to here is 6,000. So that's what a pot is in this case. So it is an adjustable resistor, very similar, and you can use it as a rheostat. You can actually use it that way because you could just ignore this part, or no, you can just ignore this part and only use these 2 nodes for you need to. But you can use it in case. Five or 10%, I think, silence you. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 2 more circuits. And what we're going to deal with is resistor. We already have a circuit with just 1 resistor. Honestly, life would be so easy if, you know, I grabbed a rheostat that I could customize the resistance to. I could say, okay, for my circuit to work, I need 562 ohms. Fortunately, when life gives you lemons, it is what it is. We can't actually do that most of the time. So let's say I wanted to build a resistor with 660 ohms resistance. Well, I can't actually do that. 660 ohms doesn't exist. What does? 330. So something that we can do is build a circuit with 1 resistor after the other. I consider, when I teach this, I try to enforce the idea, sorry, sliding a bit out, of a train track. There's only one path for current to flow, choo-choo. So the resistor meets the other resistor. These train tracks, you have to add the resistors together. So the total resistance in our circuit would then be the value of resistor 1 and the value of resistor 2. So I said that it was 330 plus 330 means it's 600. Great stuff. We know now the total resistance in our circuit. Let's say I'm supplying 5 volts for a system. And I asked you, what is the total current in our circuit? You need to calculate first the total resistance in our circuit, then you can calculate the total current. So our voltage equal to current times resistance. Voltage over resistance is equal to current. Add the letters T's for total. And that'll be 5 volts divided by 660 ohms is equal to our current. So the total current in this case, 5 divided by 600 is 8.3 milliamps. Now, we have 2 resistors in here. Oh, did I do something wrong? Oh, I divided by 660. You're right. I put something wrong in my calculator. 7.6 would say. 7.6 milliamps. Now, what I would say, or what I would ask you is, what I mean by the train track, I want you to keep in mind that we consider the train track to always be, what's the word? To be the current. What I mean by a train track, it means the current. So I would ask something like, what is current here? What is the current here? What is the current here? What is the current? All those 4 dots. The answer is the current is 7.6 milliamps. There is nowhere else for the current to go. Therefore, the current is the same going through the resistor 1 and it's the same going through resistor 2. Here's a question. We know the total voltage supplied to our system is 5 volts. We know that the total current flowing is 7.6, and we know that the total current is 660, with each resistor being 330 ohms. What is the voltage across each resistor? Now, to those of you who are familiar with this, can shout out the answer very easily without even doing much maths at all. Almost created energy, exactly. Exactly. In series, the voltage across them will change. So how do we do that? Okay, let's look at this resistor. Let's look at Ohm's law. We know the value of that resistor. We do. It's 330. Do we know the current? I just said it. The current is the same at any given point in the circuit, and because we calculated the total current, it means that we know the current here, through here, through here, through here, through here. I'd also like to note, this isn't so important because we're not building circuits. But for health and safety, if you are going to be building circuits, I want you to learn off something from me. When you're measuring current at a point. When you put the ammeter, it needs to be in a circuit. It needs to be embedded inside a circuit, okay? No crocodile clipping across something. It has to be in series, right? Because you're measuring current at a point. If I ever hear, I know you're not my students because you're not building real circuits in front of me, but if I ever hear a student saying, I'm measuring the current across, we will be very, very angry about it. What is crocodile clipping? I will show you. build crude systems and circuits, especially introductory level and just big power stuff, we don't tend to use breadboards yet with younger kids, with younger students. Instead, we use these like awesome, thick, colorful wires. And we use something called crocodile clips. Zoom in here so you can kind of see. But this is a crocodile clip. And look at it. It looks quite literally like a crocodile clip.
That still only counts as one.
In my lab, we use the term crocodile clip and alligator clip. Crocodile clip is what I showed you. An alligator clip has the clip slightly on the outside. So basically you clip those onto resistors. You clip them onto the power supply. Just a nice, great, and easy way to create good electrical. Yeah, so I have alligator clips and crocodile clips. Let me see. Here we go. I'm going to show you how we differ. I don't think this is blanket, by the way. Not many people do this, but I want to show you the difference between a crocodile clip, alligator clip. This is a crocodile clip. Nice, beautiful connection there. This is an alligator clip. Don't stick your finger in this one now. This guy hurts. Freaking sharp as heck. Look at that. So this is a very harsh and firm connection. It's really to grip on tight, but it can be quite damaging sometimes. That thing bites hard. Yeah, it does. It does. It's very, very sore. Why is current not measured across if it stays the same? Because by the phrase of the word across, it means over something, which means at 2 points, which is wrong for that term. It's by the definition of the word. What you do measure across is potential. And also similarly as current that I mentioned earlier, if I ever hear someone saying I measured current across something, because it doesn't go across it, it goes through it. Across, right, is potential. So, or I actually didn't cover this. Sometimes instead of saying the word voltage, I'll say potential. It means the same thing in my language. And the reason why I use potential here makes also sense because it's the difference between 2 points. That's exactly what voltage is. You can't have voltage at a point. It's a difference from one point to the other. So when I say this is supplying 5 volts, it's the difference between here all the way to here. It's across these 2 points. It's supplying 5 volts. That's what that means. That minus sign and that plus sign above. Okay? Now, so this is why I'm very, very pedantic about do not say that I'm measuring the voltage at a point. And this is contradictory to a lot of electrical engineering courses because they do measure voltage at a point. There's even a whole analysis called node analysis, I believe it's called. The reason why I avoid using that is because especially when you have young students, and when I say young, I can mean up to even 3 years doing their degrees. Conceptually, the misunderstanding of voltage can build up. What voltage is can be very, very easily misunderstood when you're very, very young. So I try to avoid ever using the term voltage at a point. And again, in more advanced electrical engineering courses, you will start talking about voltage at a point. It's technically incorrect, but it's not really because they always assume it to ground. But I avoid it so it doesn't build bad habits. That's why. You can tap a multimeter in voltage mode in parallel and draw the meter in parallel, but you have to apply multimeter current mode series. Exactly. So if you guys have ever worked, why, by the way, why am I so pedantic? It's like, so what, Tofu? Let the kids make a mistake. Why am I pissed off about that? Why is it when I grab this multimeter and I get the kids to measure the current and they accidentally put it in parallel, why am I pissed off? Does anyone know? Why did I spend the last 10 minutes ranting about this? Burning the fuse. You blow the fuse. Exactly. So you will know. Does anyone remember their electrical engineering class or whatever that their voltmeter would work? but their ammeter wouldn't. Did anyone ever experience that? Like, and the lecturer would be like, oh yeah, these guys, there might be a sticker sometimes on them that says voltmeter only, or something like that on them. Did anyone else run into those? Oh yeah, also damage risk to the circuit, that is true as well. But I'm thinking about selfish different. So, just something to be mindful of. It's actually a bad thing. You don't tend to see the smoke, but yes, technically magic smoke will appear. But this happens quite often. You can actually smell immediately that you're doing something. Usually it's shorting something, and so on and so forth. But usually that's what a fuse does. It burns, pops a thing, and suddenly it's not shorted anymore. So if you're working with someone who's a technician, for example, you're going to piss them off because it means that they have to sit there and change it. And that's not nice. High impedance ammeter. I mean, they do. So, is this one? Yes, so this is one of the classical ones. I'll show you. Because of the fuse design, check this out. So we have the common, which is always going to be the ground. We have voltage readings here. This guy can read current, resistance, and other stuff. Look at this one. This is 10 amps. For really, really high current readings, you actually even use a different probe completely. You have to actually physically set this out to measure different current because of that fuse protection place. There are little things to be mindful of. Infrared is invaluable to create. It saves your fingers. Okay, cool. Alright, apologies for clapping and being mean to you at any given point. I hope I wasn't. Yeah. Anyways. So you can actually measure what the voltage across each resistor is going to be. Let's actually do the maths. The voltage across resistor 1 equal to the current, 7.6 milliamps, times the resistance, 330 ohms. The milliamps, just be careful in your calculator, and it's going to be roughly, you can check the work now, 2.5 volts. Across resistor 2, voltage is the same current, 7.6 milliamps, times 330 ohms. Voltage is roughly going to be 2.5 volts. What's this about, chat? What's going on here? It's 5. Dun 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 dun! Alright, I might move this here so you can better. The sum of the voltage drops across the resistors is equal to the source. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, so all voltage that you supply to the circuit has to be lost across all your components, in this case, our resistors. So it means that whatever amount of voltage that we had, it had to all add up to 5 volts. Now, it's not so obvious now, but if I had changed the values of the resistors, it's also dependent on the resistor values. You're already getting 1, the pretext for the potential divider equation. And number 2, you just learned Kirchhoff's voltage law. That's it. Kirchhoff's voltage law is a fancy version of energy cannot be created or destroyed. It just means that if you're supplying a bunch of voltage to your system, the sum of all the voltage drops equals the 5 volts. Now notice the term I use. I use drops. I like that term because it's kind of a good analogy from a physics perspective of what's going on. If we're supplying 5 volts to the system, those 5 volts have to go somewhere if it's closed circuit. They have to go somewhere, so we have to lose them. Okay? It's kind of like the analogy I use is think of a mountain. Alright, chat, we're starting up on a mountain. Does anyone know the equation for potential energy? Gravitational potential energy? Does anyone remember it in mechanics? MGH, excellent. Mass times gravity times height. So it depends on the height. So let's say conveniently, we climbed a mountain and it's 5 kilometers high. Okay? So we're 5 kilometers high, we're an electron, and we want to get down to 0 volts, right to sea level. Okay? So we're up in the top, 5 kilometers, and we want to get to 0 kilometers. So we take we approach our first trail. Our first trail takes us down 2.5 kilometers. Our second trail takes us down 2.5 kilometers. Finally, we reach 0. This is, so when we talk about drops, it's by how much you've decreased that potential energy from total. So we dropped 2.5, now we're at 2.5 kilometers. We dropped another 2.5 at 0 now. So technically, this is a good analogy as well. I hate this, just take this with a grain of salt. Our voltage here is 0, our voltage here is 0, and our voltage here is 0, and here is 0, as it closes off at this point here. Now, I don't like using that term, again, for younglings. It's really bad habit, because again, you can't have voltage at a point, we're assuming it to ground, and it is what it is. Now, I hope that was okay. That is resistors in series. Yes, different resistor would change the drop. So if I increased, here's a question then. If I increase this resistance to 300 to 500 ohms, and this is 160 ohms or something like that, is the voltage going to be higher or lower here? Higher. The higher the resistance, the more voltage that has to drop across it. It's a bigger path down the road of the mountain climb they have to go down. Okay, so the next part we're going to do is we're going to deal with resistors in parallel. This is something different. And I know that I was using water analogies earlier, and now I'm using a mountain. I actually prefer the mountain analogy. If I were to ever use an analogy when teaching electricity, I would use classical mechanics and energy, classical potential. But I understand that might be confusing, especially if there's electrical. In some courses, they might not even study mechanics, so that's maybe not fair. Do it that way. I have a very, very dusty sea bothering me. Fractal's very, very good usually for airing out the PC. It's a huge issue for dust. I like the mountain. Me too. I really, really like the mountain analogy. It also will help, I think, with the just in parallel. Hi, Alpha Sonic, by the way. Welcome in. All right. I know that's going to be weird, but would you be okay, guys? Because when I do these lessons, I always start with basics, and I invested a lot of time today on Ohm's Law. I might even quickly edit a quick thing and have it up, like pinned in my comment like this, but tomorrow it'd be fun to actually do some more complex resistor networks. Because I feel like when we cover parallel and maybe even combination, we won't get much time to cover like really cool complex stuff. Like I would love to cover the Wheatstone Bridge tomorrow. Would that be something you guys would be interested in? I have loads of videos on Thevenin, Caterpillar, if you're interested, on YouTube. I upload loads of educational videos if you're, but tomorrow it will be great. I won't follow, but I'm interested. Look, Sam, I'm sure you will be able to. I'll try my best. You can't follow, it's not because of you. I could have. I'll actually draw the circuit another way.
Still only counts as one.
what confuses a lot of kids, they start this. Sorry, I say kids, I don't even teach kids, but, you know, younglings. These two circuits, lo and behold, are actually the same thing. They're the exact same circuit. And I know it looks weird, but it is something to kind of get used to practicing and realizing what everything is. It comes with experience, I would say. Identifying how these structures look and how they are interpreted. This structure is really easy, or it is nice from an introduction level. Like when you see kids first do resistors in parallel, showing them directly that they're in parallel like this is really good. However, this is cleaner. Which one do you guys prefer? This one, the first one, or this one, the second one? What do you think looks visually nicer and more understandable? AKA load cells, exactly, yes. Wait, you prefer the second one? Oh, wow. Left one is your left. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so second is more compact. Wait, I think we mixed up first or second. This is number 1. This is number 1. This is number 2. You like number 2 better. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so I agree that 2 is very good for initial understanding when you're first into this. But later I feel like this is nicer, but you know what? For the name of science, we'll use number 2. It seems number 2 is the most popular one. I promise you they're the exact same. Okay, so let's say the resistor values are the same again. Our question again is find the total current. Okay, so what is current? It's the flow of electrons, right? We're going to hold current's hand. I'm confused. Current is a complex entity. I don't know what it wants to do in life, so I'm just gonna hold current's hand and figure out what happens. So I'll grab current's hand. Current starts here. Thinking about a Russian song. Okay, that was a bit too niche. I think like maybe 3 people tops in the chat might have figured out what I just... Anyways, suddenly current is at a crossroad. Now remember what I said. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, but can transfer from one form to another. Oh, forget that second part even. That's more confusing. I don't need it. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. So we have current flowing. And so a portion of the current is going to go this way. And the remaining portion is going to go this way. Current splits into 2 paths. It will divide. Exactly. And then it'll play in this way all the way around. Now I'm going to do this a certain way. Now, will I do it backwards? Give you the resistor equations for parallel first, or will I just tell you about potential? Okay, no, I'll tell you about potential. I'm going to do this backwards. This is unusual for my teaching, but you're lab rats. I'm going to experiment teaching first. Remember I said the analogy of voltage is you climbing a mountain. And it's 5 kilometers up here, i.e. 5 volts. There's electron 1 and another electron. Those are not boobs. They're two electrons and they're chilling up there, okay? They're going to be an analogy for current. And their goal, get to 0 volts, here. If you follow the current, that's the electron flowing, there's two possible paths it can take, but then ultimately it's going to be, there's nothing else afterwards, it's going to be at 0 volts. So what happens is that there's options. The current can go one way, or it can go another way, but they're both going to 0 volts, 0 kilometers. So using that analogy, what is the voltage across R1 and what is the voltage across R2 when we're using this mountain analysis? Have current on top, it's 5 kilometers high. It can go through resistor 1 to get to 0 volts, or it can go to resistor 2 to get 0 volts. What is the voltage across this resistor here, i.e. the path, or this resistor here, i.e. the path? It's the same. Because it stepped down 5 kilometers immediately, 5 volts, step down here, 5 volts. The potential for each resistor then is 5 volts. When you have resistors in parallel, their voltage drop is going to be the same. Because there's no other resistors in here, it's just these two that we're dealing with, the 5 volts we're supplying has to be dropped across both of those resistors. Both of them are 5 volts. We're not creating extra voltage. It's not, 5 volts plus 5 volts. That's not what's happening. Both of their potentials are the same. They just have different paths, but they're in the same parallel path or section of our journey. Now, using that analogy, how is current affected in parallel? Perfect question, Frown Nose. Perfect moment to jump in to ask that. B over R is equal to I. Let's find what is the current going through this resistor 1 value. Our voltage is going to be 5 volts. Our resistance is 330. Let's do the maths for our current one. 5 volts divided by 330. We get 0.015. Yeah, Ohm's law, we still apply it all the time. The resistors happen to be the same. For current 2, 5 volts divided by this. Here's the question. What's the total current in our circuit?
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys!
No worries, Rockefeller. Thank you so much for 100 biddies. You're too kind. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. If it's 15 milliamps going in here, 15 milliamps going in here, they both join together over here again. What's the total current when they combine? 30 milliamps. Add them together. So our total current I'm doing this completely backwards. I know a lot of people who might be experienced are saying, this is weird. I've been taught it the other way. And I know why. I've never taught it this way. This is unusual for me, but I'm making my brain work backwards. I'm going to show you something. If our total voltage is 5 volts, and our total current is 30 milliamps, what's our total resistance?
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys!
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. 106.6 ohms. That's a weird number. I have two resistors. 330 plus 330. What just happened there, chat? Weird, isn't it? The total resistance in our circuit decreased by putting those resistors in parallel. Now you might think, how is that possible? How did we do that? How is it, you know, working out this way? Well, think about it. We have a pipe of water, if we're using our water analogy, and we have a flow of water. And I put two resistors, okay? And they slow down the flow of water. But what if I created two pipes? Doesn't that mean that I've increased the resistance? If there's two possible paths for water to flow through, even if there is resistance, we actually increase the amount of water that we can allow through versus just one. Doesn't that make sense? Think about it. We had a resistor, a pipe, a squeeze pipe, right? Squeeze pipe, about this size, we'll say, and it's blocking the flow of water. Now what I've done is put two pipes and allow the water to flow through both of them. Has more water flow through. That is why we have less resistance in total. You have many straws instead of one straw. There we go. That's a great analogy, Chippy. I might steal that. Now, the formula for it, and this is where my teaching is backwards. Usually when kids learn this, again, when I say kids, I don't mean that derogatory. I just refer to my students as children. I do see them that way. I apologize. Even if everyone is an adult. Just, again, I hope I'm not insulting anyone. Where was I? The formula is this. For parallel. When you have two resistors in parallel, the sum of the inverses of them is equal to the total resistance inverse of the total resistance. Should have said it in that structure. Hey Preserve, welcome in with your 80 stream streak. Thank you so much. Just don't give. Let's prove this theory. Let's prove if this equation is true. Flip the inverse. That's 330 divided by 2. Sorry, I'm running out of space. In your calculators, 330 divided by 2. What do you get, chat? Lo and behold, you get 166.6. This equation is true. I've never taught this way before. Very, very odd indeed. You're not blocked, PCB. I'm not sure why you say that. I read out your answers. Very odd behavior. I think of it like getting more cars down more lane. Yeah, I use car lane analogy, Motorman, very similarly in when I talk about vanadium flow. Actually, car analogies. Oh, 130 divided by 2 is 165. Thank you. Why did I get 166.6 then? That's just a rounding error. That's not really 15 milliamps. It was 15 milliamps repeating. So when you're rounding up a lot of things, they'll kind of, your rounding error can carry. It is meant to be fair. Oh. But we actually got through it. Yeah, it's 0.015 reoccurring, and because of that, I just carried on a lot of error by rounding it. Whose kids? The older I get, the wider the definition of kids becomes. That is true. That is true. I agree. No, it's both. It's both. The higher the resistance, the higher the voltage across it, which then affects the current. It affects both. For series, you want the current same. Yeah, we did that earlier on the other side as well. More path, more flow, less resistance. There we go. You're too kind. Where does the analogy of the water break down? Usually in electronic devices. But even then, most of them work out quite well. You can get some really nice analogies with MOSFETs. When you start talking about switches and pipes and things like that. But here, the water analogy is fine. Capacitors? Yeah, I don't... Is there an analogy with water? Capacitors and inductors? I never teach water. That's it, Silencio, yeah? So the water tank storage is a bit... Presses when pressure. The tube with the spring in it. Why? Sort of. Yeah, I wonder if that at some point that analogy just really doesn't become very helpful at all, even if there are ways. At some point, I feel like you need to start thinking about electrons. Just fuck water and actually think about electrons. Maybe that's really... What's the word? I'm not thinking outside the box enough. I think I understand, Shudder, sorry. Oh yeah, I suppose it only works with yeah, I don't know, does water analogy work with AC? I've never heard of it. I guess the flow of water back and forwards, but the phase angle doesn't. Yeah. Starts breaking down weird, I would say. Honestly, as soon as you can in your studies, abandon the water analogy. Start thinking about electrons. Yeah, I really like electrons because it explains everything. Electronic devices, it explains capacitors, it explains inductors. When you think from a pure physics perspective, everything makes a lot more sense. Again, that might be a biased opinion of mine, of course, but when I studied all of this, I always thought it from a physics perspective. Understand what's going on. That still only counts as one. Unfortunately weird. Water has electrons as well. That is true. That is true. Oh, I'm bursting to pee. I was gonna say, if I drink anything but water, I need to pee more, but that's not really true. But yeah, when I drink something like Lucozade Sport or like a juice, I feel like I need to pee more than if I drank water. Anyone else like that? I think you might be right, Cater. There might be electrons in you. You might be onto something. Yes, your bladder behaves like a capacitor. My capacitor is getting charged. But no, that's weird because no, that analogy doesn't make sense because a capacitor builds electrons on one side of the plate and then lets them go, which means that if we used my bladder as a capacitor analogy to circuit, it means I'd be drinking water this way, and then when I need a pee, it will come out this way. So no, using my bladder as a capacitor analogy is a terrible analogy. That doesn't work at all. Biology ain't gonna work out here in this sense. It does work like alcohol though. Yes, maybe. Is the digital signal video? Yeah. There is a digital signal video. I think it was like my second or third previous video. Oops, on the tubes. All right, let's do this. My channel. Oh. It's the third most recent video. What are ones and zeros? Introduction to digital signal. Why is my phone looking? Yeah, so that's really what we're working on with modern technology. When I was a kid and when I was a young student, we kept talking about Moore's Law. Now that I'm a lecturer, we don't really talk about Moore's Law anymore. And I wonder, maybe I'm just not teaching it, but I realize that Moore's Law has hit a cap now. Am I right in thinking that? I actually don't know about this. Moore's Law is dead. Oh my god, apparently this is a big YouTube thing. So yeah, back when I was young, about 10 years, yeah, okay, that's fair. I've been out of school for a long time in that sense. But yeah, so Moore's Law was a big thing for ages, and now it's kind of... Yeah, it's a concern, but also it can be utilized. Quantum tunneling can be utilized for some good stuff as well. It means it was alive at some point. Schrodinger's Moore's Law. I might actually jump out on YouTube here because we did finish the lesson. YouTube, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the support on the channel. Twitch, say goodbye to YouTube. We'll see you guys tomorrow where we will do a bit more advanced electrical resistor networks. So we learned what parallel was. We learned what series is. Now, then we're going to put them all together. Solve a bit more complex stuff. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye, YouTube. Bye-bye. I get private time with Twitch now.